Chapter 548. The dark flame whale was useless against Jidong. Just as he dodged, Jidong also made a similar move as the dark flame fire demon lord, but his hands were raised on both sides of his body instead of in front of him. Two rays of light appeared on both sides of Jidong at the same time as he raised his hands. The dazzling golden light and the gloomy black light emitted completely opposite fire elemental waves. After these two rays of light appeared, they soared up to 7 meters before condensing into two fire demon overlords. Over 7 meters, they were definitely overlords. Although they weren't as tall as Jidong, who is 8 meters tall, there were two fire demon overlords. How is this possible? The fire demon king, who had been watching the battlefield coldly, finally lost his composure and exclaimed. Of course, he could tell that those were not two real fire demon lords, but elemental bodies summoned out of thin air. Holy fire, elemental body, and demon flame, elemental body. However, he was the only one who could summon overlord-level elemental bodies in the entire fire demon race. Not to mention anything else, just why Jidong used this skill was already shocking enough. This was a secret exclusive to the fire demon race. Don't panic, Fire Demon King. These two elemental bodies shouldn't have been summoned at the last minute. This human doesn't have such powerful magic. He must have summoned them a long time ago and evolved them by absorbing the rich fire element in our core world, the Fire Spirit King comforted. The Fire Demon King's aura was obviously a little unstable. Of course, I can feel what you can feel. However, I just want to know, why can this human use the powerful skill of our fire demon race? Moreover, he is a dual attribute like me. Only overlord-level fire demons can summon elemental bodies at the same time. In the entire fire demon race, only my brother and I can summon dual attribute elemental bodies at the same time. Where did this human's ability come from? Fire Spirit King, I request to stop the current selection. Let's figure out this matter first. The Fire Spirit King shook his head and said, "That's not good. Fire Demon King, we are now carrying out the selection ceremony for the acting sect master. We can't affect the entire ceremony because of your fire demon race. You are also one of the supreme elders of the holy religion. How can you ignore the public for personal reasons?" I agree with the Fire Spirit King. Since the selection ceremony has already begun, it must go on. Fire Demon King, if you have any questions, you can wait until the ceremony is over. If we stop the ceremony now, won't the other races laugh at us? Fire Lotus King also spoke. She was the calmest one when Jidong summoned the two elemental bodies. Among the three supreme elders, only she knew where Jidong's ability came from. Fire Demon King snorted angrily and said, "All right, I'd like to see how much ability this human has." While they were talking, the battle below had already begun. The summoning of the two overlords not only shocked Fire Demon King, but also shocked the entire fire demon race and all the powerhouses watching the battle. Of course, the fire demon race knew that Jidong wasn't one of them at all, but the other races had a big question mark in their hearts. Could it be that this human was originally one of the fire demon race? If he could summon the two overlords, then wouldn't his cultivation be similar to the Fire Demon King's? If his cultivation reached the sage level, he could transform into a human. Could it be that he was a sage-level powerhouse? Jidong didn't care how others guessed his ability. The two elemental bodies have been evolving for so long in the Earth's core. When they passed through the territories of various races in the Earth's core world, the two elemental bodies played a big role. Many races had mistaken them for the fire demon race, so Jidong and the others were unimpeded in most places. At this moment, it was time for them to truly enter the battlefield after they had matured. Jidong took a step back, and the two elemental bodies stepped forward at the same time to block his body. They waved their right arms at the same time, and their movements were neat and uniform. Gold and black fireballs flew out, and the two fireballs condensed in the air. The two fireballs fused in the air, and the gold and black colors blasted straight at the dark flame fire demon overlord. Although the dark flame fire demon overlord was surprised, It was naturally not weak to be chosen to represent the fire demon race in the competition. Facing the attack, it used the most basic dark moon claws with both hands at the same time. With a loud explosion, the ultimate dual fireballs exploded in front of the dark flame fire demon overlord. Both sides were actually tied, and no one had the upper hand. After all, the two elemental bodies were summoned by Ji-dong. Although their mana had reached the overlord level, they were still inferior to the dark flame fire demon overlord in front of them. Moreover, the dark flame fire demon overlord was an authentic fire demon race with a true body. But even so, relying on the two elemental bodies to tie with the dark flame fire demon overlord was enough for Ji-dong to be proud. He was thinking that it felt good to have a younger brother. After the two elemental bodies used the ultimate dual fireballs, they pounced towards the dark flame fire demon overlord at the same time. Glaring light continuously burst out from their bodies, and it was clear that they had raised their mana to the limit. The two elemental bodies were inseparable, and the yin and yang flames fused with every attack. For a moment, the dark flame fire demon overlord was helpless, and the three overlords fought just like that. In terms of power, even if Ji-dong summoned the two elemental bodies and used the ultimate dual fireballs to attack, his overall power would still be inferior to the dark flame fire demon overlord. Once the dark flame fire demon overlord launched an attack at the level of a sure kill skill, Ji-dong's two elemental bodies would be hard to resist. But just as the two elemental bodies launched their attacks, Ji-dong's figure disappeared. The dark flame fire demon overlord did not forget how Ji-dong had defeated the electric fire rat king. He had disappeared into thin air just like that, and no one knew where he was hiding. So how could the dark flame fire demon overlord unleash its full power? Thus, the battle fell into a stalemate. The three overlords were using more basic skills, and no one was gaining the upper hand for a while. Seeing this, the Heavenly Stem holy disciples were already smiling. At this stage of the battle, Ji-dong already had the absolute upper hand. They had not expected the two elemental bodies that Ji-dong had summoned to grow to such a degree. Ji-dong mana was far inferior to the dark flame fire demon overlord, but he still had many trump cards. The two elemental bodies fought fiercer and fiercer. With the yin-yang combination, their mana consumption was far lower than that of the dark flame fire demon overlord, and they did not receive much support from the fire element in the air. Unless they were defeated in one blow, these two elemental bodies could keep fighting. Finally, the dark flame fire demon overlord could not take it anymore. It knew very well that if this continued, it would be greatly exhausted before it could find Ji-dong, and it would no longer be able to fight. The dark black flames instantly became stronger, and the dark flame fire demon overlord stomped on the ground at the same time, just like the fire demon overlord that had fought Ajin before. Its mana instantly rose to the peak, and its body leaped back 20 meters. The moment its feet landed on the ground, it rushed back towards the two elemental bodies like a black flood. Two gloomy, purplish-black chunks of ice stuck to the ground. It was the dark flame demon overlord's ultimate skill, Forbidden 100,000 Silent Flame Frost. Can't take it anymore. Ji-dong laughed inwardly. Where was he now? In fact, he had always been on the battlefield, hiding in the bodies of the holy fire elemental bodies that he had summoned. The dark flame demon overlord actually used two Silent Flame Frost at the same time. It could be seen that its fire mana was far above his own. Moreover, these two Silent Flame Frost were already close to the level of ultimate skills. It wanted to freeze its two summoned bodies and end the battle as soon as possible. All right, let's do it. Under Ji-dong's command, the two elemental bodies burst out at the same time. Their mana also rose to the peak in an instant, and then they did something that the fire demon overlord could not understand. The two elemental bodies grasped each other's hands, and their 7-meter-tall bodies floated up from the ground at the same time. A golden sun and a dark moon appeared behind their backs, and a shocking scene appeared. Illusory light burst out from the two elemental bodies at the same time, as if their bodies had suddenly expanded by 10 times. They floated in the air, reaching a height of 100 meters, and the entire 15th floor also changed, because of that. The blazing sun and dark moon that had originally only appeared behind the two elemental bodies were now hanging high in the sky. However, they were not clearly separated, but instead drew closer to each other and finally fused together, turning into a golden and black Tai-Chi diagram that rotated and changed. The fusion of the golden and black colors was so perfect. The two icy flames released by the dark flame demon overlord instantly melted after entering the huge golden and black light pillar, as if they were extremely fragile and had no offensive power at all. This scene was too shocking, especially to the fire demon race. The powerful fire demon king was floating in the air, but its 12-meter-tall body was actually trembling slightly. Looking at the hands of the 200-meter-tall figures, it felt as if something was stuck in its heart, and everything in front of it became blurry. In the past thousands of years, the fire demon race had only lost once in a war, and that was against the flaming bar. However, ever since these powerful creatures appeared in the core world, the fire demon race had only ruled for less than a tenth of its time. It was not because the fire demon race was not powerful enough, but because most of their powerful forces had fallen into endless internal strife. This problem had troubled the fire demon race for thousands of years. Yin and Yang could not coexist with each other. If it was not for the appearance of this strange fire demon king, the two factions of fire demons would not have temporarily allied together. Even now, the fire demon race still had many internal problems. If it was not for the suppression of a saint-tier powerhouse, perhaps they would have fallen apart long ago. Looking at the four hands that were holding each other's hands, every single fire demon became silent. Endless emotions surged in their hearts, and in an instant, the atmosphere of the battlefield that should have been extremely intense suddenly became strange. The 8-meter-tall dark flame demon overlord kept retreating. It was only swept by the edge of the sun and moon yin-yang world and fell 100 meters away. It did not suffer much damage, but the shock in its heart far exceeded the power of the skill itself. The two elemental bodies summoned by Ji Dong were skills in themselves. When they were integrated with each other, it was easy to release the yin and yang boundary of sun and moon. However, today's yin and yang boundary of sun and moon was far inferior to the one he used himself. Its power was only at the level of a primary ultimate skill, but it was enough to shock the Fire Demon clan and block the attacks of the two ice flames. The Dark Flame Demon Overlord's body was blasted back. At this moment, Jidong's body appeared from the sun and moon yin-yang world. The flying serpent flash burst out, propelling his body like a red bolt of lightning. The Dark Flame Demon Overlord reacted subconsciously. It raised its fists at the same time and smashed them towards Jidong's body. At the same time, its huge body shook slightly. It had already used the Dark Moon Dance, causing its body to become illusory. Dark Moon Dance? I know it too. A faint smile appeared at the corner of Jidong's mouth. His body shook slightly, and he used the Dark Moon Dance at the same time. This time, he did not dodge. His body rapidly rotated as he used the Dark Moon Dance. He activated the Devil Flame Whirlpool, and his hands kept striking out as he rotated, colliding with the Dark Flame Demon Overlord's fists more than 10 times. Boom! Jidong's body was forcefully smashed to the ground. When his feet touched the ground, they sunk up to his knees before he could stabilize his body. It seemed like he was smashed to the ground for no reason, as though he had suffered a great loss. However, the Dark Flame Demon Overlord's body also froze there, the black flames on its body flickering faintly. In the distance, the two elemental bodies that Jidong had summoned had already returned to their original state. However, their bodies were clearly a lot smaller. A large amount of mana had been consumed, and their accumulated power had been consumed. The ultimate skill absorbed too much energy. Rumble! A series of explosions suddenly rang out. Countless black and golden flames exploded on the Dark Flame Demon Overlord's arms. Its thick arms were blown to pieces, and its huge body was also sent flying. The Dark Flame Fire Demon Overlord was indeed powerful, but if Jidong couldn't defeat it in a situation where he had just dealt with a sure kill technique and his mind was greatly affected, then he wouldn't be fit to be called the Heavenly Stem Sage King. With Ji-dong's physical strength and mana, he wouldn't suffer too much of a loss if he went head-on against the Dark Flame Demon Overlord. The reason why he was smashed to the ground by the opponent's fists was simple: God Extermination Strike. Chapter 549. Ji-dong quickly condensed his mana into a God-slaying seal and infused it into the Dark Flame Fire Demon Overlord's fists. When the two sides collided, Ji-dong felt the Dark Flame Fire Demon Overlord's extremely powerful strength, especially since the ultimate fire was much stronger than his. The God-slaying blow was greatly affected when it entered the Dark Flame Fire Demon Overlord's body. Originally, Ji-dong wanted to rush his mana into the Dark Flame Fire Demon Overlord's chest before exploding, but the Dark Flame Fire Demon Overlord's cultivation was at the level of a human level, 98 Magic Master. Under Ji-dong's all-out effort, the God-slaying blow could only penetrate its arm. However, even so, it was enough for Ji-dong to win. Don't forget that this was the core world, and all fire attribute skills were greatly enhanced. The sixth layer of the God-slaying blow was compressed by 6 times. Even if it was just a punch, it would have power close to a sure kill skill, let alone Ji-dong's dozen palm strikes. Stop! The Fire Demon King couldn't hold it in anymore and shouted, causing the 15th layer of the core world to tremble. Ji-dong spread his wings and freed his feet from the ground. He looked up at the Fire Demon King in the sky and said indifferently, Supreme Elder, what can I do for you?" The Fire Demon King's aura was obviously a little unstable. "Speak. How did you learn the skills of my Fire Demon race? Also, what's up with the skills that the 2 elemental bodies you summoned just used?" As he spoke, the pressure released by the Fire Demon King suddenly increased, and all of it concentrated on Ji-dong. The powerful Saint-tier pressure made Ji-dong's floating body slowly land on the ground, but he didn't panic at all. Facing the pressure from the Fire Demon King, he just looked up without the slightest bit of timidity. Ji-dong raised his hands, and golden and black flames rose a meter from his palms. Strong mana fluctuations spread in the air, displaying the purest ultimate Yang fire and ultimate Yin fire. Ultimate dual fire doesn't seem to be exclusive to the fire demons. As for where my skills come from, why should I tell you? Ji-dong said indifferently. The pride in his voice caused all the core elders of the Sacred Church of Flames to feel admiration, regardless of whether they had been eliminated or not. He was facing the patriarch of one of the 3 most powerful races in the core world, the Fire Demon King. From a certain perspective, the Fire Demon King was the strongest race in the entire core world, yet he was able to reply so calmly to the Fire Demon King's question as if he was on equal footing. None of the core elders were able to do that. Without the need for the Fire Demon King's command, all the fire demons in the surroundings moved at the same time. Their massive bodies took a step forward, and every fire demon's soul locked onto Ji-dong. As long as the Fire Demon King gave the order, they would charge forward without hesitation and tear Ji-dong into pieces. The reason why the Fire Demon Clan could make the Fire Spirit Clan and the Fire Lotus Clan join forces against the Fire Demon Clan was not only because of their individual strength, but also because of their absolute advantage in numbers. The Fire Demon Clan had more than 3,000 clansmen, including the young fire demons. Without considering the Fire Lotus Clan and the Fire Spirit Clan, such a force was enough to sweep through the entire core world. After all, more than 70% of the fire demons could reach the level 10 realm after reaching adulthood. 3,000 fire demons was a terrifying force. Without even calculating, Ji-dong could also come to a conclusion that if the Fire Demon Clan could be dragged to the surface world, the 5-element continent would still be swept away even if there were 2 more Dark Tianji. Unfortunately, this was obviously impossible. Back then, even when the 2 great sovereigns ruled, the core world did not have any thoughts of invading the surface world. It could be seen that there must be a great restriction. Fire Demon King, how dare you? The Fire Lotus King, Lai Yin shouted loudly. Her figure flashed, and she had already arrived in front of the Fire Devil King. Her red hair fluttered in the wind. Ji-dong's heart was originally filled with vigilance, but the moment he saw her fly out, his mind couldn't help but be slightly dazed, because he seemed to see his own flames appear again. They looked too similar. Fire Lotus King, this is my clan's matter. Mind your own business, the Fire Demon King shouted in a deep voice. The Fire Lotus King said coldly, the Holy Church's acting leader selection ceremony is not your Fire Demon clan's matter. No matter what ability this human has, and no matter where he got his ability from, I only know that this is the most important moment for the Holy Church. If you affect the entire ceremony for your own clan's matter, are you still worthy of being the Supreme Elder? Are you courting death? The Fire Demon King's voice seemed to be squeezed out from the gaps between his teeth. The enormous pressure that was gathered on Ji-dong instantly shifted and landed on Lai Yan's body. Facing the Fire Demon King, the Fire Lotus King's might was not weak at all. A glaring red light suddenly blossomed from her body. Below her feet, blood-red petals spread out in the shape of the geocentric red lotus. Enough! Seeing that both sides were about to fight, the Fire Spirit King hurriedly came out to smooth things over. Fire Devil King, this is your fault. Fire Lotus King is right. This is an important moment for the Saint Sect. We can't let a little outside factor affect our selection ceremony. What's more, this human has already defeated your clansman. He is considered to have passed the third round. Even if you have questions, it's not too late to ask after the selection ceremony is over. Do you think he can run away? Do you think he can run away? The Fire Demon King looked at the Fire Spirit King's smiling face and snorted. With a wave of his hand, the experts of the Fire Demon clan below returned to their original position. The powerful pressure that was like a mountain also disappeared. The Fire Demon King pointed at Ji-dong and said faintly, no matter how many rounds you can last, you must give me an explanation after the selection ceremony. Otherwise, you and your people won't be able to walk out of here alive. His voice was very calm, as if the previous anger and shock had disappeared. However, the unquestionable tone in his words made no one doubt it. Ji-dong said calmly, between us, it's hard to say who will give the other an explanation. There is no longer a need for him to continue the selection battle. The heavily injured Dark Flame, Fire Demon Overlord had already been escorted away by its clansmen to heal its wounds. Blowing off one's arm might be an irrecoverable disability for humans, but it might not be the case for fire demons. The preliminaries continued. Compared to the previous 2 rounds, this round was obviously much more intense. There was one round where both sides were heavily injured, and both of them were eliminated at the same time. This reduced the number of participants in this round to 11. In other words, only 6 people could participate in the next round and not the original 7. This also meant that there was no need for the next round to draw lots without a bye. Ajin only appeared in the last battle of this round. She stood quietly beside Ji-dong and waited. Lan Baoer had already quietly arrived behind Ajin, continuously injecting her ultimate Gui water mana into Ajin's body. She used the effects of the water mana to help Ajin increase her mana. Although she could not make Ajin have the mana of the life-sustaining matrix, she could at least make the mana that she had previously replenished reach its peak. Ajin, don't use force. Safety is the most important. The Fire Demon King is suspicious of me. I'm afraid that he won't give up after the selection battle. We must try our best to maintain our full power and be ready to break out at any time. Ji-dong's voice sounded in Ajin's mind. He had said so much because he wanted Ajin to give up this battle. This was because her opponent was still a fire demon, but it was no longer a fire demon overlord like before. Instead, it was the most powerful fire demon among all the participants. The Heavenly Stem Holy Disciples seemed to have used up their luck in this round. The 10-meter-tall fire demon was watching from afar, already eager to try. Ajin replied, Ji-dong, it's true that the Fire Demon King wants to harm us, but if you can obtain the final victory and become the acting leader, it will have to think twice no matter what it wants to do. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. The more she said that, the more worried Ji-dong was. He knew Ajin's temper too well. Given her character of dying rather than living in dishonor, It would be strange if she didn't fight with all her strength once she was on the battlefield. However, at this point, he could not persuade her anymore. Ajin's position among the heavenly stem holy disciples was rather special. She had the most powerful magic power, and she was also the daughter of the ancestor of the Earth Dragon and the first Tianji. Based on these 2 points alone, she already had an extraordinary position among the heavenly stem holy disciples. Moreover, she had been with the Flaming Bar for a long time and called the Flaming Bar Master. Moreover, she had saved it before. Therefore, Jidong could not really order her to do anything. Finally, it was time for Ajin to go on the battlefield. The 10-meter-long fire demon on the opposite side could not wait any longer. Gold and black flames danced violently on both sides of its body. In a flash, it had already arrived at the center of the battlefield. It raised its left hand, which was flickering with black flames, and hooked it at Ajin. Jidong's voice sounded in Ajin's mind. Judging from its magical power, even if this fire demon has not reached the saint tier, it should be close to it, far surpassing you and me. Moreover, its physical strength should be the same. Even if it's not as strong as you or me, it's not much weaker. However, you have to pay attention to one thing. Through observation, I discovered that although this huge fire demon overlord has strong magical power, it can't use the yin-yang double fire fusion technique. This is where it is different from me. When you fight with it, you have to try your best to avoid a head-on collision. Instead, use your superior speed to deal with it, and then look for an opportunity to attack. Ajin, whether it's for the integrity of the heavenly stem saints or for your father, Senior Griffin, you have to put your own safety first. Do you understand? Ajin did not answer Jidong's words, but she said to herself in her heart, "This battle is not for anyone else, but for you, Jidong." A brilliant golden light shone, and Ajin's body flew into the air. She twisted her body and revealed her dragon form. Her body, which was more than 10 meters long, soared into the air. It seemed that her power was no weaker than that of the fire demon on the ground. A loud and cold dragon roar resounded through the 15th level of the core world. Under the influence of the dazzling golden light, Ajin pounced towards the huge fire demon overlord. "Idiot, didn't I tell her not to fight head-on?" Jidong roared in his heart. However, at this moment, he could no longer communicate with Ajin. On one hand, there were 3 saint-level experts watching over him. On the other hand, disturbing Ajin at this moment would only affect her, and he would not be able to help her. The dual attribute fire demon overlord laughed sinisterly, and its thick arms shook on both sides of its body. Immediately, the Xingwu primordial yang sacred fire and the Dingxi netherworld spiritual fire rose at the same time and rose to an altitude of 50 meters. The temperature in the air rose rapidly, and the fire element that was almost viscous burst out in all directions. It did not have a demon domain. This was Jidong's first judgment. It was obvious that although the fire demon overlord's cultivation was high, it could not truly fuse the yin and yang flames together like he could. It could only use a special method or talent to possess these 2 flames at the same time. In this regard, the Fire Demon King was probably the same. It was precisely because it could not truly fuse the yin and yang flames together that it did not have a corresponding demon domain. Jidong was able to determine this from the fire demon overlord's behavior of releasing its mana. Otherwise, it would not have just released flames. It would have released its demon domain to fully suppress it. With the rise of mana, the fire demon overlord waved its right hand, and an ordinary version of the brilliant sun cone flew straight at Ajin. It used its ultimate skill effortlessly, as if it was the simplest standard skill. It could be seen how huge its mana was and how amazing its control was. A golden halo floated out without any reservation. Ajin used her metal-type artifact, the Golden Ring of Annihilation, as soon as she came up. With a low, buzzing sound, the Golden Ring of Annihilation collided with the brilliant sun cone with a layer of white light. A shocking scene appeared. The powerful skill of the Fire Demon race was used by the Fire Demon Overlord, whose strength was only second to the Fire Demon King. However, such a powerful, brilliant sun cone was actually cut open by the Golden Ring of Annihilation. Then, it turned into a golden rain of light and scattered in all directions. This was the profound meaning of Ajin's victory in the previous round. The golden ring of annihilation was used in conjunction with the demon domain. However, why did she use such a powerful skill right from the start, and only to resolve an ordinary ultimate skill? Not to mention the powerhouses of the Earth's core. Even Jidong had no idea what Ajin was trying to do. Ajin's dragon wings suddenly flapped, and her speed suddenly increased. Like a huge golden light, she collided with the body of the fire demon overlord. Extreme metal-type demonic power fully erupted, and streaks of lightning-like golden light lit up around Ajin's body. Endless sharpness was sharpened by the golden ring of annihilation. At this moment, she looked like she was launching a suicidal attack. Chapter 550. For the 10-meter-tall fire demon overlord to have such a status in the fire demon race, it could be said that it had experienced hundreds of battles. When it saw Ajin charging towards it, it did not panic at all. Instead, it let out a strange laugh, and a glaring light shone from its hands at the same time. At the sight of this, Jidong's expression suddenly changed because he was shocked to discover that the powerful fire demon overlord's hands were burning with the sure kill technique, the great silent flame ice, and the sure kill technique, the great brilliant sun all. The two sure kill techniques shone at the same time. This was something that Jidong could never do. Even with the power of the continuation matrix, he could only use these two sure kill techniques one after the other. It was impossible to release them at the same time. Moreover, with his familiarity with the two sure kill techniques, he could clearly sense that the fire demon overlord in front of him had completely reached the power of a high-grade sure kill technique. Two high-grade sure kill techniques. Since the selection ceremony until now, no geocentric powerhouse had used such a powerful demonic skill. The mana in Jidong's body boiled. At this moment, he could not wait any longer. Even if Ajin had a saint-level physique, she could only die in the face of two high-grade sure-kill techniques at the same time. Believe me, I can do it. At this moment, Ajin, who had transformed into a dragon, suddenly roared. She spoke in human language, and she shouted it directly. Among all the powerhouses present, only the heavenly stem holy disciples and a few geocentric powerhouses could understand her. Ajin knew Jidong too well. She knew that in such a dangerous situation, Jidong would definitely save her. If that was the case, her plan would be completely ruined. Jidong's magic power, which he had already gathered, froze when he heard Ajin shout. He clenched his teeth and didn't rush out in the end, because he believed that Ajin wouldn't make useless sacrifices. At this moment, the fire demon overlord had already released its two sure kill techniques. It was not afraid of exhausting too much mana. Even the heavenly stem holy disciples could use the 5 elements to replenish their mana. As a local on the 15th floor of the geocentric world, it naturally had a large number of clansmen supporting it at any time. The use of two high-grade sure-kill techniques was undoubtedly to end the battle as soon as possible. There was no need to worry about exhausting too much mana. The faster each round of the selection was carried out, the more advantageous it would be for it. The purple and incomparably sparkling great youthful flame ice emerged from the ground. Huge pillars of purple light soared into the sky. The huge great brilliant sun cone rose like a sun on the battlefield. It deliberately lagged behind the great youthful flame ice by a step before moving. That's right, the fire demon overlord couldn't achieve the fusion of yin and yang like Jidong, but it wasn't difficult for it to achieve the interweaving of yin and yang. Ajin could not dodge the great youthful flame ice's lock-on. The brilliant purple light had already engulfed her golden dragon body. When he saw Ajin disappear into the thick pillar of purple light, Jidong could not help but close his eyes. His fists were clenched so tightly that the bones in his entire body could not help but crackle. The crowd exclaimed. Jidong instantly opened his eyes. He saw a scene that made him laugh. The great youthful flame ice was one of the dark flame devil king's most powerful sure-kill techniques. Jidong had already tested its power more than once. But at this moment, what he saw was not Ajin, who had turned into an ice sculpture, but the golden dragon that had slashed its wings and flew out of the purple light pillar. It went straight for the high-grade sure-kill technique, the brilliant sun cone. After passing through the great youthful flame ice, Ajin's dragon-shaped body had quietly turned into a human form. Her size had shrunk, and the area where she was subjected to the force would naturally shrink as well. The golden lightning that had surrounded the golden dragon's body had condensed on the golden hoop of annihilation in her hand after Ajin had transformed into a human form. At this moment, the golden hoop of annihilation was so bright that it was almost transparent. It flew out of Ajin's hand and went straight for the brilliant sun cone. Boom! The situation was very similar to the previous battle. The tip of the brilliant sun cone cracked a little under the effect of the fire penetrating demonic territory, and its power weakened. Then, the entire front of the brilliant sun cone exploded, and a ring of fire that expanded outwards appeared. Then, it collided firmly with the golden hoop of annihilation. A cloud of golden mist rose from Ajin's body. She had used her fire-penetrating demonic territory and the golden hoop of annihilation skill to resist, as well as her own powerful demonic techniques to forcefully dissolve most of the brilliant sun cone's attack power. Logically speaking, she only needed to use the momentum to retreat, and she would be able to dissolve the aftermath of the brilliant sun cone as much as possible. With her saint-level body, it was impossible for her to be injured at all. However, she did not do so. Not only did Ajin not retreat, but she transformed into a golden dragon again and charged directly towards the aftermath of the brilliant sun cone. She used her body to forcefully withstand the attack of the brilliant sun cone. It must be known that this was a super killing technique of extreme yang fire. It had an extremely strong restraining effect on her attributes. Even in such a situation, Ajin still fearlessly faced it head-on. What kind of stubbornness was required for her to persevere like this? Another cloud of golden mist was spat out from Ajin's mouth in her dragon form. This was not some demonic power, but her blood. Ajin was injured. Jidong immediately determined her current situation. At this moment, Ajin's body had already passed through the aftermath of the brilliant sun cone and finally arrived in front of the fire demon lord, whose soul undulations were filled with shock. Ajin swung her dragon tail and slammed it heavily towards the fire demon lord's body. The fire demon overlord instinctively raised its right arm to block the attack. There was a loud boom, and the golden flames on the right side of its body scattered in all directions. Its enormous body was also knocked back dozens of meters by Ajin's dragon tail. Understood. Seeing this scene, Jidong finally understood what Ajin wanted to do. He did not know what method she used to pass through the great serene flame iceberg, and then used all her strength to pass through the brilliant sun cone. Her goal was to get close to the fire demon lord. She did not take his suggestion of moving around at all. Instead, she chose close combat. There was no doubt that Ajin's choice was extremely dangerous. The fire demon lord had used 2 high-level super killing techniques. As long as one of them landed on Ajin, she would definitely be severely injured even if she did not die. However, Jidong had to admit that Ajin's choice was the smartest. This was because only her saint-tier physique was not weaker than her opponent's. By relying on the ancestor dragon's purest bloodline inheritance, she had a chance of winning in close combat. After Ajin's dragon tail attack pushed the fire demon lord back, she did not give up. Her body flashed, and she chased after her opponent. Her right wing swept out like a huge guillotine. The front of the entire right wing shone with a water-like golden brilliance. The sharpness of the metal element was undoubtedly evident. The great demon lord's reaction was also extremely fast. After being pushed back by Ajin's dragon phoenix attack that passed through the brilliant sun cone, the great demon lord was infuriated. He stomped his left foot heavily on the ground, and his huge body rolled forward. The black flames on his left hand completely converged on his arm, and he slashed out, colliding with Ajin's dragon wings. With a muffled bang, Ajin, who was in the air, was instantly sent flying back. A wound also appeared on the fire demon lord's left hand. The most brutal and direct close combat had begun. At such a distance, it was impossible for both sides to release skills that could cause great damage to each other. In this situation, what they could do was to use their bodies and mana as much as possible to destroy the other party without using powerful demonic techniques. Jin's dragon wings, dragon claws, dragon tail, body bashing, head bashing, and even bite were all used. The 10-meter-tall fire demon lord also brazenly faced Jin's attacks. Every time they collided, there would be terrifying bangs. The heavenly stem holy disciples clenched their fists tightly. Everyone was paying close attention to the situation in the arena. Suddenly, a soft little hand appeared in Jidong's hand. When he turned his head, he saw that Chun Sichuan had come to his side without him knowing. Gentle Imu mana was injected into Jidong's body, making him feel very comfortable. Jidong, what do you think of this battle? Chun Sichuan asked in a low voice. Jidong sighed and shook his head. Chun Sichuan also sighed and said, "If this was the human world, even if Jin lost, the other party definitely wouldn't be able to escape unscathed. Unfortunately, this is the 15th floor of the core world." Jidong nodded and completely agreed with Chun Sichuan's words. Indeed, Chun Sichuan was right. Unfortunately, this was the 15th floor of the core world. Boom! After a particularly loud explosion, Jin and the fire demon lord finally separated. Jin's body was sent flying far away like a kite with a broken string, while the fire demon lord also seemed to be in a very sorry state. Its body was covered in flames and covered in wounds. Although they were all light injuries, it was the first time it had been in such a sorry state since participating in the selection ceremony. Jin's body fell heavily to the ground. The fire demon lord panted heavily and quickly gathered mana. Just as it was about to attack again, Jidong shouted, "Enough! We admit defeat for this battle." The fire demon lord grinned, as if it hadn't heard Jidong at all. It condensed another great sun all. Previously, the great serenity flame ice had not been effective against Jin, so it had lost some confidence. It was still going to use the great sun all to win. Stop! A powerful spiritual suppression descended, causing the fire demon lord to pause. Although the skill that it had condensed was not interrupted, it forcefully stopped its movements and looked up at the fire demon king in the sky. The fire demon king nodded and waved at it. Only then did the fire demon lord retreat. Jidong's figure flashed and appeared beside Jin, who had fallen to the ground. The golden light faded, and Jin, who was covered in wounds, had regained her human form. More than 70% of the golden armor on her body had been shattered, revealing her fair skin and bloodstains in many places. At that moment, her face was as pale as paper, and she was in a semi-conscious state. Her body was still twitching slightly, and there were at least 30 wounds on her body. Jidong felt an intense pain in his heart, but he relaxed slightly. Although Jin's injuries were not light, her body with the ancestral dragon's bloodline was extremely resilient. In the end, she did not suffer any irreparable damage. Jidong picked up Jin's body and soared up, returning to his companions in a single leap. Du Ming and Lan Bauer hurried over. Lan Bauer was going to take Jin and use her and Du Ming's ultimate ninth water to heal her. Just as Jidong handed Jin to her, Jin suddenly opened her eyes and grabbed Jidong's Godfire Sage King armor. Although her gaze was unfocused, there was some anxiety in her eyes. She whispered to Hyoheim, "Saint Tyr, it's a Saint Tyr." After saying that, Jin's hand loosened, and she fainted in Lan Bauer's arms. Saint Tyr, what a shocking word. When Jin had said that to Jidong before she fainted, she had used her spiritual force to forcefully fuse with Jidong's, transmitting her judgment over. This was also why she had fainted immediately. Take good care of Jin. Jidong warned Du Ming and Lan Bauer before standing up again. His heart could not calm down. Jin's warning came at the cost of dozens of injuries. Although she could not deal enough damage to the fire demon overlord, she was able to determine its true strength through their fight. Ajin was not saying that the fire demon overlord's body was at the saint tier, but that it was an all-around saint tier. Through the spiritual ripples that Ajin transmitted over, Ji-dong understood that when Ajin fought with the fire demon overlord, the toughness of the fire demon overlord's body was not any weaker than hers. Furthermore, in terms of the mana ripples, it had completely surpassed the level of the other fire demon overlord she had faced before. Even though the 10-meter-tall fellow tried its best to hide it, Ajin's goal was to figure out just how strong the fire demon overlord was. Naturally, she carefully sensed it and finally came to a conclusion. The fire demon race already had a second saint tier expert. This 10-meter-tall fire demon was the fourth saint tier expert in the core world. It was no wonder that the fire demon race dared to go against the fire lotus race and the fire spirit race. It turned out that there was another saint tier expert in the fire demon race. What a terrifying power. Even the most powerful race in the human world, the dragon race, could not compare to the fire demon race in terms of overall strength. The information that Ajin brought was too valuable. Although it affected Ji-dong's confidence, at least he knew how strong his opponent was. Ajin, don't worry. I won't let you suffer such pain for nothing. I'll definitely make that bastard pay the price. After this battle, the third round of the Holy Church selection ceremony of the Flaming Bar ended. Out of the 13 people who participated in the third round, only 6 entered the next round. Chapter 551. Ji-dong, the 10-meter saint-level fire demon, Hong Yin, who had a bye, the fire spirit race's remaining contestant, and the 2 core elders. At the end of this round, apart from the 10-meter saint-level fire demon, the rest of the fire demon race was completely annihilated. The fire spirit race only had 1 contestant left. The group that had perished together just now included 1 contestant from the fire spirit race. Up until now, the selection ceremony had reached its climax. Other than Ji-dong, the other participating earthly core experts were all at the peak of the 10th level. There were even some like the 10M fire demon who had already broken through the saint level and reached the early level of the saint level. Ji-dong was shocked by the word martial sage, but it didn't mean that it could affect his confidence. He had faced martial sage experts before. When he was in the dragon tribe, he had sparred with the dragon emperor almost every day. Martial sage experts were indeed powerful, but it didn't mean that they were invincible. At least under certain circumstances, Ji-dong could exert strength close to that of a martial sage. There were only 6 people left, so there would no longer be a bye. Without a doubt, Hong Yin had the most advantage in this round. She had enough time to rest and recover to her peak condition, while the 10-meter-long fire demon stared at Ji-dong with a burning gaze, as if it couldn't wait to choose him in the next battle. Ajin did not pass many soul memories to Ji-dong, but it dispelled his doubts. Previously, Ajin had been able to pass through the Ice of Yu Flame, not because her own strength had reached a level where the Ice of Yu Flame could not harm her, but because of her talent, the progenitor dragon's talent, called immunity. The progenitor Earth Dragon was the ancestor of the Dragon Emperor's bloodline. Ajin had inherited its life, so how could she not have dragon talent? Talent. Immunity. A powerful talent that could only be used once a day. Once used, the user would instantly be immune to the enemy's next attack. No matter what level the attack was, the user would be immune to 90% of the attack power and all the special effects of the skill. Because of this, Ajin could pass through the Ice of Yu Flame and finally get close to the Fire Demon Lord to fight hand-to-hand. Saint-level physique versus Saint-level physique. Ajin was not at a disadvantage, but she was at a disadvantage because her mana was not as good as her opponent's, and she did not have any replenishment. Under such circumstances, even if she did her best, how could she defeat the powerful Saint-level Fire Demon? Losing the mana in the life-sustaining matrix, she no longer had a chance to erupt. In Ji-dong's eyes, this Saint-level Fire Demon was not invincible. First of all, it was not a truly powerful high-level Saint-level like the Tip Demon Lord. Secondly, through his previous observations, Ji-dong discovered that the yin and yang fire of this Saint-level Fire Demon only coexisted but did not fuse. This left a flaw in his own power. For other races, this flaw might be completely useless, but for Ji Dong, who was so familiar with the yin and yang fire, it was not impossible for him to take advantage of this flaw. Not only would this flaw appear on the saint-level fire demon, but it would also appear on the fire demon king. Otherwise, when his two elementals used the sun, moon, and universe world fusion skill of the two demon kings, the fire demon king would not be so shocked. Hong Yin had been secretly paying attention to Ji Dong, wanted to see something from his emotions, but she was disappointed. Beyond the surface or soul waves, Ji Dong was so calm. Hong Yin could not help but admire him in her heart. The Fire Demon King had already made it clear that it wanted to find trouble with him, but he could still remain so calm. Just this point alone was something that not many people in the core world could do. Big sister, is the love between humans really so wonderful? It even made you give up on your god-level power and almost lose your life. I wonder if I will have such an experience in the future? Thinking of this, Hong Yin could not help but feel a little shy. At this moment, a ball of light with a diameter of 1 meter descended from the sky and floated in the middle of the 6 people who entered the 4th round. The Fire Spirit King's voice sounded. The ball of light will spin randomly. Whoever the light points, I will walk out and fight against each other. As soon as it finished speaking, the ball of light with a diameter of 1 meter shot out a ray of light. Then, the ball of light spun rapidly. The moment it spun, the Fire Spirit King cut off all soul waves. The Fire Demon King and the Fire Lotus King attacked at the same time, each shooting a ray of light onto the ball of light. This was for the fairness of the draw. The two saint-level powerhouses' power clashed with each other, and no one could control it. As the light spun rapidly, it fixed on the Fire Spirit race's clansman first. The Fire Spirit Overlord retreated on its own. Then, the ball of light started spinning for the 2nd round. The most nervous one was the Fire Spirit Overlord, who had already escaped. The place where the light stopped for the 2nd round would be its opponent for this round. The spinning speed of the ball of light became slower and slower. Finally, it gradually came to a stop. The dazzling light swept past the 10-meter-long Fire Demon and Hong Yin. Finally, it stopped on Ji Dong's body. Just like the 3rd round, in the 4th round, Ji Dong's first battle was against the Fire Spirit Overlord. The ball of light didn't continue spinning. Obviously, it wanted to wait for the 1st round to end before choosing another opponent. Ji Dong floated up and landed on the battlefield at the same time as the Fire Spirit Overlord. The Fire Spirit Overlord looked like a ball of faint red light, and dense soul waves were constantly being released from its body. Its opponent was Ji Dong, which made it relax a little. Although Ji Dong had defeated the Electric Fire Rat King and a Dark Flame Fire Demon Overlord, the 2 elemental bodies he summoned had consumed too much mana in the previous battle. Obviously, they couldn't play a greater role in the battle. Moreover, the Fire Spirit race's battle style was extremely unique. It wasn't afraid of Ji Dong at all. In its opinion, this was the best choice it could draw. After all, everyone could feel that Ji Dong's mana was extremely weak. Of course, this weakness was evaluated according to the standards of the 3 major races. The Fire Spirit King frowned slightly. Its thinking was completely different from that of its clansmen. Whether it was Hong Yin or the Saint-Tier Fire Demon, it at least knew what abilities they were good at and could immediately compare their strength with the last representative of its race. However, this young human gave it a sense of mystery from the beginning to the end. Especially in the previous round, he actually used the skills of the Fire Demon race and summoned an elemental body that could actually fuse yin and yang. Even the Fire Demon King was shocked. So how could the Fire Spirit King not be wary? As one of the 3 Grand Supreme Elders, it naturally hoped that the final victor would be its own clansman. It couldn't see through Ji Dong, and it didn't know what other abilities this young human had yet to use. At least, so far, he didn't seem to be going all out, nor did he reveal any more of his abilities. No matter what it thought, the Fire Spirit King couldn't stop the start of the battle. It said in a deep voice, "The 1st round of the 4th round begin." Along with the Fire Spirit King's command, the Fire Spirit Overlord had already flown up, and a layer of soft red light quietly spread out. However, it seemed to have enveloped the entire battlefield. It wasn't a mana fluctuation, but a spiritual fluctuation. To be more precise, it was the mental mana territory. Everything in the outside world was blocked by the red light. At this time, Jidong could no longer hear any sounds from the outside world. He couldn't even feel the existence of any fire elements in the air, let alone the location of the Fire Spirit Lord. He had completely fallen into the mental demon territory of the Fire Spirit Lord. However, there was a smile hidden behind the mask on Jidong's face. In the eyes of others, he was very unlucky to be drawn to face the Fire Spirit Lord in this round. In terms of overall strength, although the other two core elders had advanced, they were more or less injured. Their overall strength was inferior to the Fire Spirit Lord in front of him. Moreover, the Fire Spirit clan's fighting style was so special. It was obviously not a good thing to draw such an opponent. However, Jidong knew that luck was completely on his side in this round. Not only him, but the Heavenly Stem Saints also couldn't help but reveal a smile on their faces. In terms of mana, the Fire Spirit Lord was equally powerful. However, what was it best at? And what was the Fire Spirit clan's best at? It was the power of the soul, the incomparably powerful power of the soul. They could even absorb the fire element through the power of the soul to form this illusory body. It was imaginable how terrifying the Fire Spirit race was when it came to the attainments of the soul. All physical attacks were ineffective against them. This was also the main reason why the Fire Spirit race could become one of the 3 strongest races. It was simply too difficult to kill them. What about Jidong? What was Jidong best at? He was proficient in many abilities, but there was no doubt that without any enhancements, his strongest ability was the power of his soul. This was also the only ability he had that could rival the 3 supreme elders of the Sacred Flame Church. Even the Fire Lotus King and the Fire Demon King weren't much stronger than him in this aspect, as he had the power of a mid-stage Saint Venerable. Unless the Fire Spirit Lord's soul cultivation could reach the level of the Fire Spirit King. Otherwise, how could it have the upper hand in the battle of soul in front of Jidong? With a mental demon domain enveloping him, Jidong immediately sensed the strength of the Fire Spirit Lord's soul. Sure enough, the Fire Spirit Lord must have extremely high achievements in soul cultivation to be able to be sent to participate in the competition. Even though it was still concealing it, Jidong could easily detect the Fire Spirit Lord's true soul cultivation with his soul power that surpassed his opponents. Just like the 10-meter fire demon that had reached the Saint tier, although the Fire Spirit Lord's mana was still at the level of a rank 10 divine beast, its soul power had completely entered the realm of the Saint tier. This was why it did not hesitate to fully release its mental demon domain at the beginning of the battle to fully suppress Jidong. The Fire Spirit Lord had absolute confidence in its own soul power. The wings behind Jidong spread out, allowing him to float in the air motionlessly. From the outside, he seemed a little dazed as he floated in the mental demon domain, but at the next moment he raised his head. The moment he raised his head, the Fire Spirit King, who was watching the battle nervously in the sky, couldn't help but feel his heart skip a beat. 2 rays of silver light shot out from the eyes of the divine fire, holy King Armor's mask, and an extremely tyrannical soul fluctuation erupted like a geyser. Immediately afterward, gold and black flames condensed behind Jidong. The moment the Tai Chi pattern appeared, the 2 rays of light actually turned red, and a huge red eye appeared above Jidong's head. Eclipse Phoenix Hua was a partner that was connected to Jidong's bloodline. After seeing Hua use its innate skill, Eyes of Phoenix, to break through the mental demon domain, Jidong was very interested in this innate skill. Of course, he couldn't use Hua-Er's innate skill, but with the connection between him and Hua-Er, he could feel the profoundness of the Eyes of Phoenix in the most detailed way. Hence, there was the red eye above his head. Jidong used his Saint-tier soul power to simulate the Eyes of Phoenix, and named it the Eyes of Truth. When a huge red eye appeared above Jidong's head, Only Ji-dong and the fire spirit overlord could hear a series of cracking sounds coming from the mental demon domain that was originally suppressing Ji-dong. It was as if glass had broken, and it spread to every corner of the domain. Since you want to have a soul collision, then let's have a soul collision. The opponent didn't have a physical body, so there was only one way to completely defeat the opponent, and that was through the soul. Rays of silver light floated out from Ji-dong's forehead and scattered in all directions. It looked messy, but it was these silver rays that were specifically looking for the cracks in the fire spirit overlord's mental demon domain. The fire spirit overlord in front of Ji-dong had a much stronger soul power than the magic master who had released the mental demon territory that Ji-dong had encountered previously. Ji-dong's eyes of truth, which simulated the eyes of the phoenix, could not defeat it immediately. However, with the addition of the fantasy silver demon territory, which was also at the sage level, it was different. The eyes of truth caused cracks to appear in the mental demon domain of the fire spirit overlord, and the silver soul rays of fantasy silver drilled into the cracks, and then pulled with all their might. The mental demon domain that was already full of cracks could no longer withstand such a blow. No matter how much soul power the fire spirit overlord injected, it shattered in the next moment, and all the illusions and pressure in front of Ji-dong's eyes disappeared. The silver threads rolled back and shrouded in an instant. The surroundings had completely turned into a silver world, and the fire spirit overlord's figure was shrouded in it. Saint Tyr's soul, the fire spirit king, said, in surprise. The fire spirit king sighed and said, to be precise, it should be the Saint Tyr intermediate soul power. I didn't expect there to be a powerhouse with such a high soul strength among humans. Chapter 552. The flames in the fire demon king's eyes flickered, and he said, what about his mana? Could it be that he has been hiding it, and has actually reached the Saint Tyr? The fire spirit king shook his head and said, that shouldn't be the case. Although I don't know how he did it, it seems that his mana and his soul power are not on the same level. However, it would be a big mistake to underestimate him because of that. With his mana, he shouldn't even be able to release a beginner ultimate skill. However, he has already proven his actual combat ability to us. This is a mysterious human. The Fire Lotus King didn't participate in the discussion. To her, Ji-dong was also a mystery. Although the Flaming Bar had explained to her, she wasn't very clear about the aspects of Ji-dong's abilities. The battle between Ji-dong and the Fire Spirit Lord hadn't ended yet. Although Ji-dong had used the Eye of Truth and the Saint Tyr soul power in conjunction with the Dream Silver Demon territory to counter his opponent and gain the upper hand, it wasn't easy to end this battle. After all, the Fire Spirit Lord also had Saint Tyr soul power. An ear-piercing scream resounded throughout the Dream Silver Demon territory. The Fire Spirit Lord realized that something was wrong and immediately launched an all-out attack. A red awl that seemed to be magnified infinitely pierced through the void. It didn't have a target and just shot out. It contained a massive soul wave and even the Fire Spirit Lord's soul core, which was its body. Going all out, Ji-dong frowned slightly. In this situation where he had the absolute advantage, he didn't intend to fight with his opponent. Instead, he wanted to preserve his strength for the next battle. However, at this moment of hesitation, his expression suddenly changed. He was shocked to find that the red awl not only became bigger, but it also started to spin rapidly. There seemed to be a special force on it that was continuously sucking his Dream Silver Demon territory, as if it wanted to empty his demon territory. Along with this situation, the sharp tip of the awl actually pointed at Ji-dong's actual position when the Fire Spirit Lord couldn't determine Ji-dong's position at all. What skill is this? The Fire Spirit race was indeed worthy of being one of the 3 strongest races in the core world. They actually possessed such a profound technique. Ji-dong understood that if this continued, not only would his illusory silver demon territory be broken, the rapidly spinning sharp awl would eventually point at his body and erupt with an unimaginably powerful attack. It would definitely not be any weaker than a high-level ultimate skill. After the Fire Spirit Lord realized that its situation was not good, it immediately made a desperate attempt. It didn't hold back and mixed its soul power and magic power. Under the situation where the fire element was isolated from the outside world, it launched a powerful attack called the Fire Spirit Finger. The fusion of magic and spirit was one of the fire spirit race's most profound skills. It's a pity that your soul power isn't as powerful as mine. Otherwise, I'm afraid you would have succeeded. At this moment, Jidong's voice suddenly sounded in the Fire Spirit Lord's mind. Then, the surrounding illusion disappeared quietly, and what it saw was countless silver threads wrapping around the huge, all formed by the Fire Spirit Finger. Jidong's words couldn't affect its willpower at all. Determination was a characteristic of the Fire Spirit race. Just when it thought that its Fire Spirit Finger was about to completely break the opponent's mental demon territory, all the silver threads suddenly lit up. Wisps of red mana floated up, and all the silver threads that entangled the Fire Spirit Lord's finger tightened in an instant. The Fire Spirit Lord was horrified to discover that its soul power was being attacked by the fantasy silver magical domain. What was more terrifying was that the fire attribute mana that was condensed within the Fire Spirit Lord's finger was continuously disappearing, or rather being stripped away. The wisps of red mana were the fire element that was being extracted. The power of the Fire Spirit Finger, which was originally equivalent to a high-level ultimate skill, plummeted. Under the suppression of the Dream Silver Demon territory, although it could release the skill, it couldn't see where Jidong was. Even if it released the skill, what was the use? Second Demon Territory. The three Grand Supreme Elders of Flaming Bar spoke almost at the same time. The Fire Spirit King's expression became more solemn, while the Fire Lotus King looked surprised. As for the Fire Devil King, its expression couldn't be seen at all, but could be seen from the accelerated frequency of the flames in its eyes that it was definitely not calm now. The three Grand Supreme Elders were very clear about what two demon territories meant. If there were no special circumstances, having two demon territories meant only one thing, and that was the Sage level. That's right, when they reached the Sage level, they all had a second demon territory. At this time, seeing that Jidong used the element stripping demon territory, they immediately made the corresponding judgment. He was a human. No matter how he came here and how he knew about the selection celebration of the Saint Church's acting leader, whether it was the Fire Devil King or the Fire Spirit King, they didn't want the position of the acting leader to be obtained by a human. Originally, the Fire Devil King had absolute confidence in his younger brother, or a derivative of his body, the 10-meter-tall Fire Demon Lord. But at this moment, his confidence was shaken. Jidong's Sage-level strength, coupled with the use and understanding of the Fire Demon Clan skills, made everything suspenseful. The Fire Spirit King moved his mind, and his soul power had already shrouded the Fire Lotus King and the Fire Devil King, forming an empty space where only the three of them could communicate with each other. I think the final format needs to be changed, the Fire Spirit King said without hesitation. The Fire Devil King said in a deep voice, "What do you want to change?" The Fire Spirit King said, "I think the two of you don't want the position of the acting leader to be obtained by a human. No matter what, our celebration is held in front of all the elders of the Saint Church. The final winner will obtain the position of the acting leader. This is irreversible. However, once the position is obtained by a human, it will be too passive for us. You should still remember that before the start of this celebration, we swore on the safety of the core world that no matter who obtained the position of the acting leader, we must fully support him. But we didn't expect this human to appear. Although the core world was much simpler than the human world, it took oaths very seriously. Even an arrogant existence like the Fire Devil King wouldn't go against the heavy oath that he had made. Hearing the Fire Spirit King's words, he couldn't help but nod. Meanwhile, the Fire Lotus King looked at the Fire Spirit King and waited for it to continue. The Fire Spirit King continued, "After this battle, there will be 3 people that will advance, and we will also have 3. Why don't we do this?" Hearing the Fire Spirit King's words, the Fire Lotus King frowned while the Fire Devil King let out a series of weird laughter. "All right, we'll do as you say. This way, we can ensure that nothing goes wrong. No matter what, the acting leader must be someone from our core world. The Fire Spirit King turned to the Fire Lotus King and said, "Fire Lotus King, what do you say? This concerns the future of the core world. I hope you can put aside your prejudice for now." The Fire Lotus King pondered for a moment and finally nodded. "All right, I agree too." Saying these simple words, her expression turned ugly. She sighed in her heart. "Big sister, I hope that what you said to me before is true. Otherwise, I'm afraid that the situation in the core world will no longer be under our control." While they were discussing, the first battle of the fourth round had already ended. Jidong used the ethereal demonic stripping domain and combined it with his fantasy silver demon domain to completely destroy the Fire Spirit Lord's all-out attack. When the Fire Spirit finger finally exploded, the Fire Spirit Lord's soul was already injured and he fell to the ground, temporarily losing the ability to fight. Although Jidong's soul was also greatly shaken and a large amount of his soul power was consumed, his mana was basically still in a complete state. He also became the first contestant to enter the top 3. Due to the cooperation between the Fire Spirit race and the Fire Lotus race, Jidong didn't continue to chase after the Fire Spirit Overlord. Instead, he returned to where he came from. Chen Sichuan's soft hand immediately held onto his fiery big hand. Dense E with demon power appeared together with their souls, and the perfect double replenishment was fully unleashed. Under normal circumstances, the recovery speed of the soul was much slower than the mana recovery speed. However, Jidong did not have to worry about this at all. Under the soul fusion with Chen Sichuan, his soul power could even be compared to the Fire Spirit King's. With Chen Sichuan's help, his soul power recovered rapidly. "Thank you, Sichuan." Jidong turned and said to Chen Sichuan with a smile. Chen Sichuan shook her head gently and focused on helping Jidong recover his soul power. At the same time, she also secretly sent a trace of her divine sense into Jidong's soul and did something that even Jidong was not aware of. The second round of drawing lots continued. Even Jidong did not know that at this moment, the competition of the Flaming Bar's Holy Selection Ceremony had already entered a black box operation. The second round was between the Sage-tier Fire Demon Lord and a Core Elder. There was no doubt that the last round would be between Hong Yin and another Core Elder who was more seriously injured. The drawing of lots was carried out by the 3 Supreme Elders at the same time. They worked together to carry out the black box operation, and no one could discover it. If one looked closely, they would discover that there was a hint of worry in the eyes of the Fire Lotus King. Jidong did not pay much attention to everything that happened outside, because he knew very well that no matter how the next round went, it would be the most crucial battle. No matter who his opponent was, it would determine the final outcome. Hence, he was going all out to use Chen Sichuan's power to restore himself to his peak state as much as possible. After a few battles, especially facing the huge pressure brought by the entire Fire Demon race, Jidong's mana was improving stealthily. One had to know that his mana was only at level 85. Facing a group of level 97 and level 98 opponents, with such huge pressure and the extremely rich fire element around him, it was impossible for him not to improve even if he wanted to. Jidong completely believed that by the end of the selection, his mana would definitely increase to level 86, and he would be one step closer to the 9 champions. The Sage-tier Fire Demon Lord and Hong Yin defeated their opponents one after another and advanced to the final of the top 3 with Jidong. Finally, there were only 3 people left. The selection ceremony of the Holy Church of the Flaming Bar had also entered the most crucial moment. As a human, Jidong being able to make it to the final had already shocked everyone. Fortunately, the other 2 who made it to the final were the representatives of the Fire Demon race and the Fire Native race, which were widely expected by the powerhouses of the geocentric core. Be it the Fire Demon race or the Fire Lotus race, both had a large group of supporters. The Fire Demon race had the advantage of a rich foundation. Their 2 sovereigns had once ruled the entire geocentric world, and the Fire Demon race itself was so powerful that at least 1/3 of the races in the geocentric core were loyal to the Fire Demon race. However, in terms of the number of supporters, the Fire Lotus race had the upper hand. After all, the flaming bar was the most recent ruler of the entire geocentric world. Furthermore, the flaming bar was different from the powerhouses that ruled the geocentric core previously. With her efforts, the geocentric core had entered an unprecedented period of peace. This alone allowed her to obtain the support of a large number of races, especially those that were relatively weaker. The existence of the Holy Church of the Flaming Bar allowed them to live in a much larger space than before. As a member of the Flaming Bar, the Fire Lotus race naturally had countless supporters. To the powerhouses of the geocentric core, Jidong was a mysterious existence. His appearance had already shocked the entire geocentric core. Although humans had come to the 15th level of the geocentric core in the past, it was unprecedented for Jidong to appear so openly and even participate in the selection for the Holy Church of the Flaming Bar. Initially, when his identity as a human was exposed, almost all the powerhouses of the geocentric core thought that this human really did not know how to write the word death and was clearly here to seek death. However, as the selection continued, Fury, Ajin, and especially Jidong displayed impressive strength one after another. Although they did not have the slightest advantage in terms of demonic energy, or rather, were at a complete disadvantage, they relied on the various unique skills that they possessed to advance continuously. In the previous round, Jidong had even defeated the representative of the Fire Spirit race. Hence, the powerhouses of the geocentric core had already changed their view of him to a certain extent. No one knew what kind of miracles this young man would bring to them. The thick layer of mystery around Jidong had already caused many powerhouses of the geocentric core to doubt whether the Fire Demon race and the Fire Lotus race would be able to obtain the final victory. Since this young man in front of them could defeat the representative of the Fire Spirit race, who could say that he could not defeat Hong Yin and the Saint-level Fire Demon? Chapter 553. Hence, everyone was looking forward to the upcoming battle. They did not notice that the people who came with Jidong had already gathered together. Fury, the Thunder Emperor, had exhausted his mana the most. Even with the help of the Hell Thunder Divine Axe, the extent of his recovery was very low, especially since he was not part of the five elements. Even if his companions wanted to help him recover his mana, they would not be able to. Although Ajin's injuries were not light, under the joint treatment of the Ultimate Water and Ultimate with Heavenly Stem Saints, she had already regained consciousness with the strength of her Saint-tier physique. Her body was also recovering at a shocking speed. Previously, when she faced the Saint-tier Fire Demon, she had chosen to fight hand-to-hand, so she still had about 40% of her mana left. Lonbauer was doing her best to help her recover more mana. Jidong was not around, so the command of the Heavenly Stems Saints temporarily fell on Tianji. At this moment, their position was completely in the yin-yang realm of the five elements. It did not matter if Jidong was not around, but it should not be forgotten that the two elemental bodies still existed even though they had exhausted a certain amount of mana. They were with the Heavenly Stem Saints and could release their mana to set up the yin-yang realm of the five elements at any time. More importantly, with their existence and under the control of Jidong, the Heavenly Stem Saints who had all 10 elements could release the teleportation formation at any time. Of course, it was very difficult to teleport from here to the surface world. With such a long distance, they would need a long period of positioning before they could teleport. However, Jidong had already considered all of this. Before they came to the 15th floor, they had also set up the same unrestricted positioning teleportation formation. As long as the Heavenly Stem Saints released the five-element yin-yang boundary and bought them a few seconds, they would be able to complete the teleportation from the 15th floor to the 14th floor. If Jidong was unable to obtain the final victory, then even if the Fire Demon race attacked immediately, they could still escape through the teleportation formation. Furthermore, Jidong had communicated with the Fire Lotus race's leader, Lai Yin, and the Fire Lotus race would also try their best to buy time for them to leave. With these guarantees, everyone could participate in the celebration of the acting Pope selection without any worries. The preservation of the two elemental bodies was also a backup plan. It could be said that they had planned everything perfectly. Of course, even without the help of the Fire Sway race, with the 5 elements yin-yang world of the heavenly stem saints, even a saint-leveled expert would not be able to break into it in a short period of time. The 4th round of selection has ended. Only the 3 of you are left in the final round. The Fire Spirit King's solemn voice was heard. At the same time, all the geocentric experts focused their attention on Ji Dong, Hong Yin, and the saint-leveled fire demon. In the final round, if we continue to fight according to the previous method, then one of the 3 of you will have to have a bye. At this stage, it would obviously be unfair if there was another bye. Thus, after discussing it with the 2 exalted Supreme Elders, we've decided to have the 3 of you fight at the same time in the final round, and then we'll evaluate your strengths. Ji Dong stood there quietly, but his soul power had already spread in the surroundings. Although the fire demon soul power had also reached the sage level, it had just entered this level and was not comparable to Ji Dong's. Therefore, it could not discover Ji Dong's subtle detection. Ji Dong was feeling the emotional changes of Hong Yin and the fire demon. When the Fire Spirit King said this, the fire demon revealed a blank expression. Obviously, it did not know how the final battle would be carried out. Hong Yin's situation was similar to that of the fire demon. Through this observation, Ji Dong could conclude that the final battle method was indeed as the Fire Spirit King had said, which was decided by the 3 Grand Supreme Elders at the last minute. If there was such an important competition in the human world, it would be impossible to make such a rash decision. However, this was the core world where the 3 Supreme Elders had absolute authority. No one could doubt the decision they made together. Ji Dong secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He thought to himself that since the 3 Supreme Elders had made the decision together, the Fire Spirit King and the Fire Lotus King were on the same side. At the very least, this final method wouldn't harm him. However, he didn't know that because he defeated the representative of the Fire Spirit clan, it made the Fire Spirit King feel uneasy and changed the cooperation between them temporarily. No matter how dirty they were all creatures from the core world after all, while he, a human, was an outsider. The Fire Lotus King naturally couldn't inform Ji Dong at this moment. The Fire Spirit King's soul power was so powerful. Once she acted rashly, it would definitely arouse the suspicion of the Fire Spirit King. In that case, the situation would only be worse. It might even push the Fire Spirit King, who had an ambiguous attitude, to the Fire Demon King's side. The reason why the Fire Spirit clan was able to survive was closely related to their tactful style. The Fire Spirit King's gaze swept across the last 3 participants. Ji Dong could clearly feel that its gaze lingered on him for the longest time. The Fire Spirit King said in a deep voice, "In this last round, due to the number of people, we have to be as fair as possible. The 3 of U.S. Supreme Elders have decided that the 3 of us will evaluate your strength. In other words, the 3 of U.S. Supreme Elders will face the 3 participants respectively and have a battle of strength with you. In this battle, whoever can last longer and show the strongest strength will be the final winner." As soon as this was said, the Earth's core experts couldn't help but be in an uproar. The 3 Supreme Elders were going to take action. This was something that none of them had expected. Ji Dong, Hong Yin, and the Saint Rank Fire Demon were also a little stunned. What kind of competition was this? Didn't they say that the 3 Supreme Elders couldn't participate in the competition? Why did they become examiners again? A powerful soul deterrence instantly appeared in the 15th level of the Earth's core world. The Fire Spirit King's eyes shone with power and said, "What? Who dares to question the joint decision of the 3 of us?" In the Earth's core world, strength was the source of everything. With the powerful soul pressure and the announcement of their collective decision, the chaos immediately disappeared. The Earth's core experts who were talking excitedly earlier were all silent. Who dared to offend the 3 Supreme Elders? Behind them were the 3 powerful clans. If they offended them, the ones who would be wiped out from the Earth core world would be their entire clan. The Fire Spirit King's gaze turned back to Ji Dong and the other 2 final participants. He said indifferently, "Since no one objects, it's decided." However, 2 of the final 3 participants are from our 3 powerful clans. For the sake of fairness, the 3 of us will not fight against our own clans. Therefore, after some consideration, we have decided that I will fight against the participant from the Fire Lotus clan. The Fire Spirit King will fight against the participant from the Fire Demon clan, and the Fire Demon King will fight against the human from the outside world. If Jidong was a little confused earlier, he immediately came to his senses after the Fire Spirit King announced the final situation. If it was someone else, he would definitely look at the Fire Lotus King in surprise. However, Jidong didn't do that. He only lowered his head slowly to hide his eyes. The eyes were the window of the soul. With the Fire Spirit King's cultivation, no matter how well he hid it, as long as the inferior person saw the fluctuation in his eyes, the Fire Spirit King would definitely be able to judge many things from it. Of course, Jidong wouldn't let the Fire Spirit King know his emotions. When the Fire Spirit King announced the battle, especially when he heard the Fire Spirit King emphasize his identity as a human, his heart was already like a mirror. Obviously, the Fire Spirit King had reached an agreement with the Fire Demon King because of his identity as a human. That was why there was such a weird final. This was almost a dead end. In terms of strength, Hong Yin and the Saint-Tier Fire Demon had already shown extremely powerful abilities. Their cultivation was far above his. If he were to fight against them, he would still have a chance to fight with all his special abilities. However, the final battle had changed to this situation. He would have to face the Fire Demon King, who was extremely curious about his identity and skills and full of hostility. The Fire Demon King had long disliked him. In addition, according to the news from the Fire Lotus King, the Fire Demon King's strength had already reached the Saint-Tier high rank, which was equivalent to the existence of the Earth Dragon ancestor. In this core world, it was definitely more terrifying than the Earth Dragon ancestor, who couldn't move. In the face of such an opponent, who would definitely attack him with all his strength, how could he win in the end? It was already a question whether he could come back alive. At the same time, Jidong also saw through another layer of the Fire Spirit King's thoughts. From his arrangement, Jidong understood that the Fire Spirit King was actually on the same side as the Fire Lotus King, but he concealed it very well. Although the Fire Demon King was powerful, he and the Fire Lotus King were far from being the opponents of the Fire Spirit King in terms of scheming. According to the Fire Spirit King's plan, the Fire Demon King would definitely kill him as soon as possible, thus avoiding the possibility of humans entering the Holy Flaming Bar. On the other hand, the Fire Lotus King's opponent was a Saint-Tier Fire Demon. Without a doubt, she would also launch an all-out attack. That 10-meter Fire Demon had just entered the Saint-Tier, so it was naturally impossible for him to defeat the Fire Lotus King. As for the Fire Spirit King, it would be simple. As long as he went easy on the Fire Demon King and let Hong Yin hold on for a while longer, the result of the battle would be determined. According to the Fire Spirit King's plan, the final victor would not be Jidong, the human, nor the ambitious Fire Demon race, but the Fire Lotus race. In this way, it could be said to be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. The Fire Lotus King would naturally not have any objections, and the previous estrangement would naturally disappear. His goal would also be achieved, which was to suppress the Fire Demon race together. Moreover, it was the Fire Lotus race instead of his own Fire Spirit race. With the race of the Empress of the Flaming Bar taking the lead, there would naturally be more supporters. In the eyes of the Fire Spirit King, this arrangement could be described as perfect. Of course, he would never reveal his inner thoughts through soul waves. Unfortunately, the Fire Spirit King was not only facing those simple-minded powerhouses from the core world, but also Jidong, a human from the outside world. After a simple analysis, Jidong was 80% sly about the Fire Spirit King's plan. He had to admit that this was an excellent arrangement, and the result was almost irreversible. However, there was one thing that the Fire Spirit King did not know. He had already obtained the support of the Fire Lotus King by virtue of his identity as the lover of the Flaming Bar. Although it seemed that this could not change the current situation, and his opponent was the Fire Demon King instead of the Fire Lotus King, everything became possible under this variable. Although the Fire Demon King was powerful, it was definitely the descendant of the two kings. Although it was stronger than the Fire Spirit King and the Fire Lotus King, Jidong was most familiar with its ability. Even he did not know how long it could last in this battle, so he could only give it his all. In fact, among the three supreme elders in the core world, the one that Jidong was most afraid of was the Fire Lotus King. Although Lai Yin was a member of the Flaming Bar, Jidong was the least familiar with their fighting style. From the ability that Hong Yin had displayed just now, he could clearly feel that unique fighting style. Therefore, he had a certain level of confidence in the Fire Demon King. Jidong, Jidong! Jidong was awakened from his thoughts by his companion's shouts. When he turned around to look at his companions, he saw that everyone looked anxious. Moreover, all of them had already gathered their mana. As long as Jidong indicated something, they would immediately be able to cast the 5 elements Yin-Yang world and the unrestricted teleportation portal. Jidong shook his head gently. At the same time, he clenched his right fist in front of his chest and gave his companions an extremely determined look. Although he did not say anything, he expressed his confidence. It was more like he was telling the heavenly stem holy disciples to believe in him. We have to believe in Jidong. He will definitely be able to get through this, Chen Xishuan said softly. The heavenly stem holy disciples could not help but look at her in surprise. After all, she had the closest relationship with Jidong and had always had an inexplicable relationship with Jidong. Although Jidong had never admitted it, everyone had already seen her as Jidong's woman. Logically speaking, she should be the most worried about Jidong's safety. However, she did not seem to be worried at all at this moment, which made everyone feel very strange. Jin knew Chen Xishuan's identity. This was the core world, and even she, the queen of the Flaming Bar, said that Jidong would be fine. Naturally, he would be fine. She immediately nodded and said, "Yes, we have to believe in Jidong. Has he not created enough miracles? Although the other party is a sage, he also has sufficient experience fighting sage powerhouses. He can do it." Chapter 554. Since Jin and Chen Xishuan had said so, he remained calm, while Yun Tianji remained silent in thought. Apart from Jidong, the 4 of them had the most right to speak. Since they didn't say anything, the others naturally wouldn't object either. At this time, Jidong had already turned around and raised his head. He looked calmly at the 3 grand supreme elders in the sky. He even saw the Fire Demon King sneering at him. In fact, the Fire Demon King was not a fool. Otherwise, he wouldn't have led the Fire Demon race to a resurgence. The reason why he was deceived by the Fire Spirit King was that the Yin-Yang fusion demonic skill that Jidong displayed previously had touched him too much. Therefore, he was so eager to understand why Jidong could possess the skills of 2 kings and fuse them together. Rather than saying that the Fire Demon King didn't see through the Fire Spirit King's plot, it was better to say that he didn't care at all. If he obtained the mystery of the fusion of 2 kings' skills, then the strength of the entire Fire Demon race would increase exponentially. At that time, how could the acting leader, the Fire Spirit race, and the Huoyan race pose a threat to the Fire Demon race? Therefore, he couldn't wait for the battle with Jidong. He really didn't want to kill Jidong. A living Jidong was more valuable to him than a dead Jidong. Unbeknownst to him, someone was already smiling smugly in her heart at this time. The person who was smiling smugly was Chen Xishuan. Only she knew what the final result of this battle would be, and it was a completely definite answer. Seeing that Jidong seemed to accept his way of competition very calmly, the Fire Spirit King sneered in his heart. A little human wants to fight for the control of my Flaming Bar holy church? What a fool's dream. At that moment, he said faintly, "The 3 of you have already gone through several battles. In order to ensure the fairness of the final battle, I will give you an hour to rest. After an hour, the finals will begin." The Saint Tier Fire Demon and Hong Yin returned to their respective clansmen and sat down cross-legged. They recovered by absorbing the fire elements in the air and adjusting their own mana. Even though the Saint-level Fire Demon's cultivation was high, it had used up a lot of energy after going through a few big battles, especially the close combat with Jin. Jin had used his Saint-level physique and the strong body of the Dragon Tribe to leave many wounds on the Fire Demon. Although it had the protection of the ultimate dual flames and was slightly less injured than Ajin, its recovery ability was not as good as Ajin's. It could use this opportunity to recover as much of its strength as possible. Next, it would face the Fire Lotus King. This would definitely be a tough battle. Jidong also returned to his partners. Everyone could not help but look at him in confusion. Jidong only smiled faintly and said, "Follow the original plan." After saying that, he sat cross-legged in front of his partners and entered a state of cultivation. It was not advisable to cultivate on the battlefield. On the contrary, in the human world, almost all the evil masters recognized that if possible, cultivating on the battlefield was the best shortcut to improve one's cultivation. Because of the urgency of the battlefield and the comprehension gained from the actual combat, the effect was naturally the best. Of course, cultivating on the battlefield was also very dangerous, not only from the enemy, but also from oneself. Because of the unstable emotions and the tense atmosphere, it was easy for the evil masters to be possessed by the devil during the cultivation process. Of course, this situation would not happen to Jidong. With his strong soul, he could completely control his state of mind. Plus, with the existence of the flame of chaos, it was impossible for him to be possessed by the devil. Closing his eyes, Jidong had already let himself forget everything in the outside world. Any conspiracy or dispute seemed to have nothing to do with him at this moment. He knew that the next battle would be the most difficult and dangerous battle in his life. It was even more dangerous than the battle with Lin Qing and Lin Alei. His goal was not to defeat the Fire Devil King, but to survive under the Fire Devil King's saint-level cultivation. As long as he could survive, it was already a victory for him. The benefits of having a powerful soul force in cultivation were undoubtedly evident. Jidong rested his mana while multitasking. He began to sort out all his abilities. He had practiced this cultivation method more than once. In actual combat, many ingenious combinations of skills could be said to have been rehearsed in his mind through this cultivation method. It was precisely because of this that he was able to display his strength to the fullest in battle. Facing the Fire Devil King, he had no more to hide. Only by going all out and showing all his abilities could he have the possibility to save his life. Jidong's brain was working fast. He began to sort out the skills of the two kings, then the skills taught by the Grandmaster Yin Zhaoyang, the Fire Beast Ku, and the Fire Beast Flying Serpent. Then, a series of skills such as Chaotic Fire, God Kill Strike, and Demon Realm were performed in his mind. Facing the Fire Devil King, he would not have any fluke in his mind. The previous situation where the opponent couldn't lock on him was obviously impossible to repeat for the Fire Devil King. Not to mention that the Fire Devil King's soul was not weaker than his. Just the unique range locking of the Saint-level expert was not something that he could break away from with his soul power. Jidong and the Earth Dragon Ancestor and the Dragon Emperor had carried out countless battles. At that time, the most troublesome thing for him was the range locking of the Saint-level expert. In other words, if the Saint-level expert wanted a lock on you, then it wasn't just a single target. He didn't even need to see where the target was. As long as the range he released could cover the target would be completely locked, and there would be no possibility of escaping. Therefore, when fighting with the Saint-level expert, one must use 120% of his spirit and completely collide with the opponent head-on. Could Jidong do all this? He didn't know himself. He only knew that no matter what, he had no chance of failure. Failure meant death. Choosing to stay and fight instead of running away was the confidence that Jidong had given himself. At the same time, it was also a test for himself. If he couldn't escape unscathed in front of the Fire Demon King, then in the near future, he would have to face Darkness Divination, who was at the peak of the saint level. Moreover, it was Darkness Divination, who possessed 4 attributes. At that time, he would have no chance of winning. Jidong was never arrogant. He didn't think that he could become a saint like Darkness Tianji in 5 years. He didn't even have the extravagant hope of cultivating to the 9th crown. After all, he was only in his 20s. In the history of mankind, there had never been a case of a person below the age of 30 achieving the 9th crown. The heavenly stem saints were already blessed by the heavens. However, in history, there had never been a case of a heavenly stem saint achieving the ninth crown before the age of 30. In fact, it was rare for someone to achieve the ninth crown before the age of 40. Therefore, in the process of continuous cultivation and actual combat, Jidong had prioritized how to integrate all his abilities as much as possible through continuous actual combat to maximize his ability. Especially after his body was soaked in the blood essence of the Earth Dragon ancestor, Jidong was even more confident. Indeed, his mana wasn't enough, but he already had a saint-level soul and body. With these 2 points, coupled with the ultimate dual flames, chaotic fire, 5 elements formation, and the 3 great demon domains, Jidong firmly believed that he could at least fight against a beginner saint-level powerhouse. Now, he wanted to verify whether he had the ability to integrate all his abilities and retreat unscathed from a high-level saint-level powerhouse. No one knew. At this moment, Jidong wasn't afraid at all. Instead, he was full of excitement. The challenge and huge pressure brought by the Fire Devil King had made his blood boil completely. This was a test of life and death, but it was also a rare catalyst on his path of cultivation. An hour passed very quickly. Without the Fire Spirit King's reminder, Jidong, Hong Yin, and the Saint-level Fire Devil Overlord opened their eyes almost at the same time. At their level of cultivation, their judgment of time was already perfect, and there wouldn't be any mistakes at all. The 3 of them opened their eyes at the same time and stood up at the same time. Their gazes collided with each other in the sky. In the next moment, they soared into the sky at the same time and flew into the sky with their different abilities. All the geocentric experts and heavenly stem saints who were watching the battle raised their heads. As Jidong and the other 2 flew into the sky, the 3 supreme elders who were originally gathered together in the sky had already separated. They formed a triangle in the sky and isolated themselves from each other. At this moment, they were more than 500 meters high in the sky, and the distance between each other was more than 3 meters. Every geocentric expert who was watching the battle was also extremely excited. Such a scene was rare, even in the geocentric world. It could be said that such a scene was unprecedented in the history of the Holy Church of Flaming Bar, that 3 supreme elders attacked at the same time. Even those core elders had not seen saint-level experts like the supreme elders attack. The atmosphere in the air instantly became excited. The geocentric experts held their breath and stared at the sky without blinking, for fear that they would miss a wonderful scene. Jidong against the Fire Devil King, Hong Yin against the Fire Spirit King, and the Saint-level Fire Devil against the Fire Lotus King. The 3 groups of opponents had already formed, and the distance between each opponent was about a few hundred meters. At this moment, although Jidong's eyes did not emit the silver light that represented soul power, his extremely clear gaze could be seen through the mask. From the moment he flew into the sky, he had already thrown away all distracting thoughts and did not even use his soul power to observe the battle situation on the other 2 sides. At this moment, in his heart, there was only the Fire Devil King in front of him, and his essence, chi, and spirit had already been raised to the peak state. The Fire Devil King hovered there, and the dual-colored flame crown on its head constantly emitted a dazzling light. It looked at Jidong, and its black and gold eyes were filled with intense excitement. The biggest problem that had troubled the fire demon race for so many years might very well be solved by this human youth. Once this problem was solved, it would be like unsealing the fire demon race. At that time, who would be able to compete with him in the core world? The Fire Devil King's gloomy and excited voice resounded in Jidong's soul. Human brat, since you're able to officially become my opponent and die in my hands, you didn't come to the core world in vain. Don't think that you'll get lucky. In front of me, you don't even have a chance. I won't kill you, and I'll only make you lose the ability to resist. Do you know why? Jidong said indifferently. It's nothing more than to ask me where the 2 sovereign skills came from. Of course, to you, it's more important to know the secret of how I was able to fuse the 2 sovereign skills, right? The Fire Devil King said coldly, since you're a smart person, don't make me waste my time. If you don't want me to cripple you and interrogate you about this, surrender to my fire demon race as soon as possible. Seeing that you also possess the yin and yang fire and know my race's skills, I can let you join my fire demon race. Oh. Jidong looked at the Fire Devil King in surprise. He didn't expect this ruthless guy to propose such a condition. In terms of strength, the Fire Devil King should be able to defeat him easily. Why would he do this? The Fire Devil King said in a deep voice, "You must be wondering why I would invite you to join my fire demon race, right? I can tell you directly. The reason is very simple. It's because I'm sincere in cooperating with you. Judging from your performance in the selection just now, you're already qualified to become a member of my fire demon race. My fire demon race only accepts experts. Moreover, I'm not afraid to tell you that I'm determined to obtain your yin and yang fire fusion method. If you can pass this method to every clansman of my fire demon race, then I can let you have an unprecedented power. I can even let you become the second most influential person in the fire demon race." Listening to the Fire Devil King's words, Jidong thought quickly. He gradually understood what the Fire Devil King meant. It wasn't that the Fire Devil King didn't have the confidence to defeat him, but that he didn't have the confidence to force out the yin and yang fire fusion method. From this, it could be seen that the Fire Devil King was determined to obtain the yin and yang fire fusion method. Yes, this guy didn't know how to fuse the yin and yang fire, but his cultivation had already reached the high saint level. What would happen if he succeeded in fusing the yin and yang fire? There was no doubt that he would reach the peak saint level. Moreover, it was very likely that he could become the second god realm in the core world after the flaming bar. Becoming a god was such a huge temptation, especially for someone like the Fire Devil King who was extremely close to becoming a powerhouse. Chapter 555. Thinking of this, Jidong's doubts were resolved. He didn't reject the Fire Demon King directly. Instead, he smiled indifferently and said, "If you want me to surrender to you, you have to defeat me first. Let me see what qualifications you have for me to surrender to you." There was one thing that even the Fire Lotus King, who was in a cooperative relationship with Jidong, did not know. In fact, Jidong did not have any ill feelings towards the Fire Demon race from the bottom of his bones. On the contrary, just like how the Fire Demon King was extremely interested in him, he also had a special sense of intimacy towards the Fire Demon race. No matter what, his cultivation had started from the skills of the two great monarchs. When Raging Flame gave him the two imprints, he had already become the successor of the two monarchs. As his cultivation continued to increase, the skills of the two monarchs gradually blossomed with great power, causing Jidong to have a strong interest in the two experts who once ruled the core world. The reason why he decided to stay and fight with the Fire Demon King was also to verify the skills of his two monarchs and obtain more inspiration from the Fire Demon King. Seeing that Jidong's words seemed to have softened, the Fire Demon King couldn't help but rejoice in his heart. On the surface, of course, he wouldn't let Jidong see anything. He said, "Very well. I will let you know if I'm qualified to make you surrender to me. Human brat, you have to be careful." At this moment, the Fire Spirit King's voice spread across the entire 15th floor of the core world. The final battle of the Flaming Bar's acting leader selection celebration begins. His shout was undoubtedly telling the experts in the core world that their final battle was fair and would start at the same time. He was using this method to shut everyone's mouths. The three battles started almost at the same time. On the Fire Spirit King's side, a tyrannical soul wave erupted instantly. In the sky, the intertwining red and silver light enveloped its body and red flames in an instant. As for what was happening inside, no one knew. With the soul cultivation of a high-level sage, even the Fire Demon King and the Fire Lotus King couldn't detect the situation inside. On the surface, it gave people the feeling that it had gone all out. After all, this kind of battle style that mainly used mental demon territory and soul power was the specialty of the Fire Spirit race. On the other side, the battle between the Fire Lotus King and the Sage Fire Demon was real. The 10-meter-tall Sage Fire Demon King suddenly raised its demonic power to the limit and punched out with both fists at the same time. He took the initiative and attacked the Fire Lotus King from afar. On the other hand, The Fire Lotus King's beautiful eyes were filled with killing intent. As her body flickered, she turned into countless illusory lights and attacked from all directions. The middle-level Sage Demon King's demonic power was released without reservation, causing the Fire Demon race experts to be worried for their compatriots. On the other hand, Jidong and the Fire Demon King also started fighting at the same time. The Fire Demon King raised its right hand and waved it towards Jidong. Just like how it dealt with the Fire Owl Overlord, the Fire Demon King's huge palm expanded with the wind and instantly expanded to a diameter of more than 100 meters, grabbing Hyoheim fiercely. Jidong only felt that the surrounding air had completely solidified. His body was instantly locked onto by the Fire Demon King, and it was impossible for him to escape with his soul power. The huge palm was filled with an irresistible demonic power, and it was extremely oppressive. Jidong didn't know the skill to enlarge his palm and grab. He didn't know if this was the skill of the two sovereigns, but from the looks of it, in the entire Fire Demon race, perhaps only the Fire Demon King could use this skill. In all the previous battles, the Saint-Tier Fire Demon, whose cultivation was second only to the Fire Demon King, hadn't used this giant spirit palm. The Fire Demon King had rich combat experience. As soon as it came up, it had already fully unleashed its soul power to suppress Jidong. At the same time, the giant spirit palm fully displayed its advantage in demonic power. It was taking advantage of the lack of demonic power and using this method to force Jidong to submit. However, if Jidong was so easily defeated, he wouldn't have participated in this battle. The terrifying mana of a high-rank saint-level powerhouse had a huge impact on him. The surrounding air was like a solid substance, clamping down on his body, making it impossible for him to move. However, it was also at this moment that Jidong's potential was fully unleashed. Didn't the air become an entity? In that case, I'll treat the air as my opponent. Jidong used both his hands at the same time. His left hand turned into a claw, and his right hand turned into a fist. He used the Dark Moon Claw 3 times in a row with the Scorching Sun triple strike. His target wasn't the opponent, but the air that froze his body. The pitch-black extreme, Yin Fire, the glaring extreme, Yang Fire, and the 6 curses instantly exploded in front of Jidong with dazzling brilliance. Every attack of Jidong contained the profound meaning of the deity killing strike. The energy solidified by jealousy was forcibly injected into the material like air. The Yin Fire and Yang Fire blended with each other, and the power of the deity killing strike erupted completely. The terrifying demonic power was raised to an unparalleled level in an instant. Boom! The 5 explosions almost merged into one. Jidong's control was no longer comparable to before, and the 6 curses were almost completely concentrated together before bursting out. The 6th stage of the deity killing strike, 6 times the condensed demonic power, the skill of the king of 2 husbands, and the perfect fusion of the Yin Fire and Yang Fire, fully displayed the attack method that Jidong was best at, using the least amount of demonic power to produce the most powerful attack effect. In an incomparably powerful explosion, the gold and black demonic power completely burst out, tearing the air apart. The powerful impact even forcibly shook off the giant spirit palm of the Fire Devil King. Jidong spread his wings behind him, and instead of retreating, he rushed towards the Fire Devil King. "Huh!" The Fire Devil King exclaimed softly. Although Jidong had shown great strength in the previous preliminaries, in his opinion, how could Jidong be a match for him with such weak demonic power? Thus, he wanted to use this most direct method to suppress him and then slowly subdue him. However, he didn't expect that not only would his demonic power suppression be broken, but even the giant spirit palm of the Fire Devil King was also shaken off. This human kid's lightning-fast attack was actually comparable to a high-level ultimate skill. How could this be? The demonic power he released was not very strong. So how could it produce such an effect? Unbeknownst to him, this was the trump card that allowed Jidong to challenge so many powerhouses. The deity killing blow was his most advantageous weapon. The demonic power that was compressed 6 times could produce extremely terrifying power when it erupted, not to mention that the 6 attacks were stacked together, and the yin and yang fusion of the ultimate dual fire complemented each other. The weakness of the 6 curses was obvious. It had to be close to the target to exert its effect, but no one could deny its incomparably powerful attack ability. It was by relying on the direct bombardment of the 6 curses that Ji-dong could break free from the Fire Devil King's comprehensive suppression. Seeing that Ji-dong was actually rushing in his direction, the Fire Devil King's giant spirit palm that was blocked suddenly accelerated, slapping towards Ji-dong's body as if it was swatting a fly. His huge body was still floating in the same place, motionless. The huge pressure appeared again, and the surrounding air began to solidify again. This time, Ji-dong didn't wait any longer. His body that was originally rushing forward suddenly changed direction, and he suddenly sank down as if he didn't dare to meet the giant spirit palm head-on and wanted to avoid it completely. A faint smile appeared at the corner of the Fire Devil King's mouth. "Kid, you're still far from being able to compete with me. After pulling away from me, you'll only be defeated." Just as the Fire Devil King was feeling complacent and was about to control his giant spirit palm to play with Ji-dong, he suddenly felt his body tighten. Then he saw that Ji-dong, who was originally falling rapidly, suddenly flew up and rushed in his direction again. This time, his speed was far greater than before, and he really sprinted like a bolt of lightning. Ji-dong's speed was really too fast. At this moment, he activated his dual soaring flames formation, Flying Snake Flash, Saint Tier Physique, Wings, and all the abilities that could increase his speed to the limit. At this moment, his speed was even comparable to that of the Fire Electric Rat King. The giant spirit palm that fell from the sky carried a huge amount of magical power. When the Fire Devil King's body tightened, he had already reacted subconsciously. He flipped the giant spirit palm, clasped his middle finger and thumb, and flicked it towards Ji-dong's path. An ear-piercing whistle accompanied by a rich golden light rushed out horizontally. How experienced was the Fire Devil King? He could naturally see that Ji-dong must have a special purpose for wanting to approach his body, so he naturally wouldn't let him succeed. Although Ji-dong's body dodged the giant spirit palm, he was about to be stopped by the golden light. However, the golden light suddenly paused in the air for a moment. For Ji-dong, a moment was enough. When the golden light really rushed over, it just happened to pass behind him, and at this moment, Ji-dong had really arrived in front of the Fire Devil King. There was no doubt that the one that could suddenly change the direction and speed up was naturally the god-destroying attraction, and the one that created that moment for Ji-dong was naturally the god-destroying wall. For these 2 derivative skills of the god-destroying strike, Ji-dong was already at ease. Even in the face of an expert like the Fire Devil King, he could also create this short opportunity for himself. The Fire Devil King couldn't help but be surprised that Ji-dong really rushed over, but this didn't mean anything. The giant spirit palm in the air was already too late and dispersed in the air. The Fire Devil King raised his right hand naturally, extended his index finger, and pointed 5 times in the air. 5 golden lights almost shot out at the same time, locking all the directions that Ji-dong could dodge. Those were 5 brilliant sun cone. Although the brilliant sun cone released by the Fire Devil King was still a killing skill, its power was already no different from a basic super killing skill. Releasing 5 of them at once, perhaps only an expert of the high saint level like him could be so extravagant, and the purpose was just to give Ji-dong no chance to dodge. No matter which direction he dodged, he would collide with at least 1 brilliant sun cone. Moreover, these 5 brilliant sun cones were constantly changing directions in the air, like puppets pulled by the Fire Devil King. What powerful strength and control! Ji-dong knew that in terms of soul cultivation, he was definitely not weaker than the Fire Devil King in front of him. However, he didn't have such powerful magical power as backup. Therefore, in terms of magical power control, he ultimately couldn't compare with the Fire Devil King. With his strength, of course, he could try to destroy 1 brilliant sun cone, but he was very clear that once he collided with the first brilliant sun cone, then in a flash, the other 4 would also collide with him. The Fire Devil King's combat experience was too rich. From the beginning of the battle until now, he had been fighting with magical power that far exceeded his own. In fact, the Fire Devil King didn't use his full strength at all. He clearly wanted to see how much ability he had. Alright, then I'll show you. The moment Ji Dong saw the 5 brilliant sun cones, his eyes had already lit up. In the next moment, the space below him suddenly split open, and a huge figure emerged without a sound, carrying Ji Dong's body. The black and white majestic body suddenly shook violently, and a strange light suddenly flashed. In the next moment, the huge body had already swept past the 5 brilliant sun cones with Ji Dong. There was no collision between them at all, and the distance between Ji Dong and the Fire Devil King was already very close. That's right, the thing that suddenly appeared was the sacred evolution fire dragon that Ji Dong had been hiding all this time. With its innate skill of traveling, it forcefully brought Ji Dong through the 5 brilliant sun cones. One should know that the sacred evolution fire dragon's innate skill had even passed through the Dragon Emperor's demon territory, let alone 5 brilliant sun cones that sealed the space. The moment the sacred evolution fire dragon appeared, the Fire Devil King was really shocked. From the aura of the sacred evolution fire dragon and Ji Dong's bloodline connection, he could feel that it was clearly Ji Dong's mount. Damn it! How could he forget that human demon masters could all have their own mounts when they reached a certain level of cultivation? However, there was no time for him to think too much on the battlefield. The sacred evolution fire dragon had been holding back for such a long time, and it could finally throw itself into the battle with all its might. How could it show mercy? Its huge body suddenly moved to the side, and the incomparably majestic dragon tail had already swept towards the Fire Devil King's chest. The Fire Devil King's body was 12 meters tall, but the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon's body was already more than 20 meters long, and it was even more majestic than the Fire Devil King. The Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon's tail had completely displayed its saint-tier strength. Wherever the dragon tail passed, there was an ear-piercing sound in the air, as if it was being torn apart. Chapter 556. Although the Fire Demon King was conceited, he didn't dare to be careless in the face of a saint-level physical collision. With a wave of his right hand, he swatted at the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon's tail. At this moment, Ji Dong had already leapt up from the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon's head. Just like the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon's tail, he also attacked the Fire Demon King's chest. The coordination between man and dragon was perfect at this moment. Just like how the Fire Demon King wanted to suppress Ji Dong's demonic power, Ji Dong was very clear about his advantage. Without Chun Sishu's fusion of soul power, he definitely couldn't pose a threat to his opponent. Therefore, the closest thing he had to the Fire Demon King was his saint-level body. Even though it was a low-level, saint-level body, it was still saint-level. The difference between his 8 crowns cultivation and the high-level saint-level magic power was much smaller. Therefore, it could be said that he used all means to get close to the Fire Demon King. He wanted to repeat what Ajin had done. However, don't forget that Ji Dong wasn't Ajin. In terms of close combat techniques, Ajin was definitely the strongest among the Heavenly Stem Saints. However, in terms of close combat power, who could compare with Ji Dong, who had the 6th realm of God Destroyer strike? Boom! The Fire Demon King was indeed strong. The Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon's tail hammer collided with his right palm, but the Fire Demon King didn't even shake. On the other hand, the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon's tail bounced back, and its body spun in the air before it stabilized. It didn't gain any advantage at all. However, it had already achieved its goal, because there was still Ji Dong behind it. Mao Tai and Wu Yangye were connected with Ji Dong's mind. Even without the connection between their souls, they could perfectly execute Ji Dong's plan. The moment the dragon tail collided with the Fire Demon King's right palm, Ji Dong's fist had already arrived. He had been waiting for this moment. The Fire Demon King had just repelled the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon and was in a state of exerting its own strength. At this moment, Ji Dong's fist had arrived. Ji Dong had grasped the opportunity perfectly. The Fire Demon King couldn't help but praise the cooperation between Ji Dong and the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon. but he didn't think that it was useful. Even though he had just fought with the two-headed dragon, he was still a high-level, saint-level powerhouse. Apart from the fact that his soul power had yet to reach that level, his body and mana were both at the same level. Even if he had consumed a portion of his mana, it wasn't something that Ji-dong could compare to. It turned out that all the opponents who underestimated Ji-dong had to pay the price. Ji-dong used both fists to attack the Fire Demon King's palm. The left fist was as black as ink, and the right fist was as dazzling as gold. The moment his fists collided with the Fire Demon King's palm, the Fire Demon King sensed that something was amiss. He was indeed worthy of being the strongest powerhouse in the core world. He could still react in such a situation. The huge palm suddenly fluctuated, and he tried his best to limit the mana that Ji-dong injected to the edge of his palm. This was already the limit that he could do. However, he was still a step too late. The mana in Ji-dong's fist was still injected into the Fire Demon King's right palm. In such a short period of time, Ji-dong had paid a huge price to rush to the front of the Fire Demon King, so it was impossible for him to gather enough mana to release a sure kill technique. However, Ji-dong had already done his best. He naturally used the deity strike to attack the Fire Demon King's palm. However, this was also the first time that Ji-dong used the deity strike to launch a sure kill technique. The Dark Flame Devil King's sure kill technique, Icy Flames, and the Flame Monarch sure kill technique, Brilliant Sun all, were sealed and compressed in his left and right fists. You don't want to know the secret of my yin and yang fusion. Alright, I'll let you have a taste of it first. It shouldn't be forgotten that Ji-dong also had a saint-grade physique. His power had already been raised to the extreme when he punched with both fists. He did what the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon hadn't been able to do previously. He forcefully raised the Fire Demon King's right palm before it could even react. In the next moment, the radiance on the Fire Demon King's right palm had already undergone a tremendous change. A violent rumble echoed from the Flame Devil King's right palm. Terrifying mana fluctuations soared into the sky. Gold and black lights burst out from the Flame Devil King's right palm and condensed into a Taiji diagram in the air. It looked beautiful and strange. The Fire Demon King let out a pained roar. He brazenly swatted his left palm without holding back. The tyrannical mana and power swept away Ji-dong and the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon. However, Ji-dong and his Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon were clearly prepared. When the Fire Demon King's left palm swept over aimlessly, Ji-dong had already recalled the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon into the space to reduce the area of impact. Then, he curled up into a ball with his wings wrapped around his body. Just like that, he was sent flying by the strong mana impact. The Fire Demon King also had dual flames, but his attributes couldn't hurt Ji-dong at all. Although the mana he released was huge, it was very scattered. It was possible to send Ji-dong flying, but it was impossible to really hurt Ji-dong. Originally, the attention of the Earth's core rankers who were watching the battle below was focused on the three battles. After the Fire Spirit King's soul force enveloped the red flames, causing them to be unable to see the battle, their attention was focused on the two sides. But at this moment, the gazes of almost all the Earth's core rankers were frozen on the body of the Devil King who had his right palm raised high, shining with the light of Tai Chi, roaring towards the sky in pain. A core elder of the Flaming Bar Holy Church whispered to another elder beside him, "The Fire Demon King seems to be injured. Is that really a human? And his mana is so weak. How did he do it?" It seems that those guys were not defeated unjustly. Oh my God. Facing the Fire Demon King, the first to be injured was not him, but the Fire Demon King. Do you dare to believe it? The conversation between the two core elders could be said to have spoken the thoughts of most of the Earth's core powerhouses. Yes, who would have thought that Ji-dong could injure the Fire Demon King first? Who would dare to believe it? However, the truth was right in front of them, and they had no choice but to believe it. Of course, they didn't know that Ji-dong wasn't feeling well either. In a previous attack, he could be said to have exhausted all of his energy. Whether it was his own performance or the short but incomparably exquisite cooperation with the sacred evolution fire dragon, it was already beyond his level. Furthermore, he had been enduring the huge pressure from the Fire Demon King from the beginning to the end. In reality, Jidong's plan wasn't complete. In his plan, this round of attack wouldn't end here. Jidong's fighting style was to explode in an instant to defeat his opponent. He originally had endless trump cards, but the Fire Demon King was simply too powerful. In the entire process, Jidong had exhausted too much of his mental strength. As a result, after he attacked the Fire Demon King's body with the brilliant sun all in the ice of Netherflame, he was already exhausted and couldn't continue to resist. He could only retreat temporarily. Moreover, all of this was based on the Fire Demon King's contempt towards him. Therefore, although the Fire Demon King had injured the Fire Demon King, Jidong, who had retreated far away, didn't reveal any expression of excitement. On the contrary, he had a solemn expression. The Fire Demon King definitely wouldn't give him such an opportunity a second time, and the damage that he had done to the Fire Demon King was extremely limited. Jidong was very clear that under the Fire Demon King's extreme reaction, the deity killing strike only sent the two ultimate skills into his palm, and before they could penetrate deep in his palm, they had already exploded. The one that was injured was at most the Fire Demon King's right palm. Compared to Jidong's solemn expression, the Fire Demon King was extremely shocked and furious. He had never thought that he would be injured by such a weak human. If it wasn't for the deity killing strike with Jidong's demonic power, he wouldn't be injured even if he stood there and let Jidong attack him. The domineering deity killing strike and the instantaneous explosion of the sun, moon, and universe world in his body shocked the Fire Demon King greatly. No matter how unwilling he was to admit it, he also understood that he had underestimated this human youth. He indeed had the ability to injure him. Apart from them, the battles on the other two sides were still going on. No one knew the battle situation between the Fire Spirit King and Hong Yin, but the Fire Lotus King had the upper hand against the Saint Tier Fire Demon. The Saint Tier Fire Demon was struggling and could only defend passively. It was getting more and more difficult. After all, the difference in strength between the two sides was obvious. Even though he had released all of his Saint Tier strength, the Fire Lotus King's ever-changing attacks, overbearing demonic power, and soul power suppressed him to the point that he didn't have any chance to breathe. Even he didn't know how long he could last. The Saint Tier Fire Demon didn't have time to observe the situation on the battlefield and didn't know the battle situation between Jidong and the Fire Demon King. However, the Fire Lotus King had been paying attention to this side. She attacked her opponent while monitoring the battle between Jidong and the Fire Demon King. Jidong was the lover of the Flaming Bar. No matter what, she couldn't let the Fire Demon King kill Jidong. When she saw that the Fire Demon King was injured by Jidong, she couldn't help but be stunned. Even her attacks slowed down a little, allowing the Saint Tier Fire Demon to breathe slightly. He actually injured the Fire Demon King. The Fire Lotus King was no less shocked than the Fire Demon King herself. She and the Fire Demon King were at loggerheads, so she naturally knew the Fire Demon King's strength very well. Not to mention that Jidong's demonic power wasn't even at 9 crowns. Even if it was her, it wouldn't be easy to injure the Fire Demon King. Big sister, what kind of monster did you train? You actually injured me. The Fire Demon King roared angrily. Even though he was also of the fire attribute, his right hand was still completely numb after suffering such a heavy blow. At this moment, he had temporarily lost the ability to fight. Jidong didn't know that the Fire Demon King's most powerful ability was mainly concentrated in his 2 hands. He accidentally injured the Fire Demon King's right hand, which immediately limited the Fire Demon King's strength to a certain extent. Jidong's attack just now was definitely after careful consideration. After coming to the core world, he was very clear that he would definitely meet powerful experts from the core world in the future. Especially after knowing the existence of these 3 Saint Tier experts, he had been thinking about how to injure or even defeat these Saint Tier experts. After thinking about it every day, he finally found the final destination when the two elemental bodies displayed the sun and moon universe realm and shocked the entire fire demon race. At that moment, Jidong had already closed in front of the fire demon king. His most powerful attack should be the fire god sword. With his current cultivation, he was completely capable of condensing the power of the fire god sword on his fist and using the god-destroying strike. If this was the surface world, such an attack would undoubtedly be more powerful, much more powerful than the sun and moon universe realm that entered the opponent's body. However, this was the core world. Every expert in the core world had the ability of fire attributes. The fire magic in their bodies was more profound than his. Such a special characteristic made Jidong's attack choice change. That's right, the super ultimate skill sun and moon universe realm required the fusion of yin and yang, and then the brilliant sun cone and the ice of ghostly flames collided. However, it must be noted that the collision between the brilliant sun cone and the ice of ghostly flames was only guiding the power of this super ultimate skill. With Jidong's current cultivation, this sun and moon universe realm was an area of effect high-level super ultimate skill. Therefore, if Jidong used it in the outside world, during the process of using it, this super ultimate skill would have to devour a huge amount of magic power from Jidong. He even had to activate the magic power in the preservation array in order to support this skill perfectly. To reach the level of high-level super ultimate skill, Jidong had to rely on a series of amplifications, such as Tai Chi demonic territory, and condense the array to complete it. After all, his magic power was still far from a high-level super ultimate skill. A sun and moon universe realm that released all its power might not be able to suck up Jidong's magic power, but there would not be much left for him. This was also why Jidong tried not to use super ultimate skills in battle. The consumption was too high, but his current opponent was the Fire Demon King. After Jidong blasted these two ultimate skills into the Fire Demon King's body in the way of God-slaying blow, he immediately cut off the connection between himself and these two skills. After the collision between the brilliant sun cone and the ice of ghostly flames, it naturally would not affect the guidance of the sun and moon universe realm because of Jidong's withdrawal. If Jidong did this in the outside world, this super ultimate skill would definitely not be completed because there was no follow-up magic support. However, the place where they exploded at this time was inside the Fire Demon King's body. There was no fire element provided by Jidong to absorb. Was there no fire element provided by the Fire Demon King? As a result, this sun and moon universe realm, which was equivalent to a high-level super ultimate skill, was formed completely by absorbing the magic power of the Fire Demon King. Chapter 557. Jidong relied on the two ultimate skills to trigger the Sun and Moon universe. It could be said that he bombarded himself with the Fire Demon King's own mana. The mana in the Fire Demon King's right palm was greatly absorbed, which naturally caused the defense of his right palm to decline. Without the support of mana, the rest could only be resisted by the body of a high-level Saint-level expert, and then bear the bombardment from the inside out of the high-level ultimate skill. Even the Fire Demon King couldn't control it, and the mana overflowed after the terrifying skill broke out. This meant that his palm had been completely swallowed by this skill. Although the strong physique of a high-level Saint-level expert prevented his right palm from being lost, it was inevitable that he would temporarily lose the ability to fight. From the beginning to the end, what Jidong had paid was only the mana of two ordinary ultimate skills. For his mana of level 85, this was nothing. However, the Fire Demon King had consumed the mana of a high-level ultimate skill and suffered the bombardment of a high-level ultimate skill in his body. This was like shooting himself in the foot. This was the best way that Jidong came up with to deal with the experts of the core world. On the premise of reducing his own consumption as much as possible, he could give the opponent the greatest damage. With his own strength, he could at most display an attack at the level of a high-level ultimate skill. It turned out that he had succeeded. Of course, this method could only be used on the experts of the core world. If it was a demon master or magical beast that was not of the fire attribute, this super ultimate skill would not be formed at all. Moreover, Jidong's fighting method was still very restrictive and extremely dangerous. Only by attacking in front of the opponent and using the god-slaying blow to hit the opponent's body could it be effective. If the ultimate skill collided outside the opponent's body, naturally it would be impossible to absorb the opponent's mana, and the attack power would be much weaker because it was outside the body. In a flash, the Fire Demon King had already understood what Jidong had done. In addition to shock and anger, he also felt a little admiration in his heart. At the same time, it also made him more eager for the yin and yang integration. If it wasn't for the yin and yang integration, how could Jidong use such a method to hurt him? He was just an 8-crown demon master, but he could exert such a strong combat power. Putting aside the weird skill that could attack his body with mana, if he could also yin and yang integration, how strong would his combat power be? Therefore, although the Fire Demon King was angry because of his injury, he was even more determined not to kill Jidong. Nothing was more important to him than obtaining the secret of yin and yang integration. In fact, in the core world, there were races that could carry out yin and yang integration. Fire Spirit race and Fire Lotus race could, but unfortunately, the yin and yang integration of the Fire Spirit race was their soul. That special method could not be completed unless the Fire Demon King was willing to give up his own body. The yin and yang integration of the Fire Lotus race came from their bodies that grew up on the 18th floor of the core world. Their yin and yang integration was already there from the day they were born. This kind of integration could not be replicated by the Fire Demon King. In terms of talent, the Fire Spirit King and the Fire Lotus King were actually far inferior to him. However, it was because of the yin and yang integration that they were as famous as him. How could the Fire Demon King not have a strong expectation for the yin and yang integration of his race? Jidong used the skills of 2 kings. His ability was almost the same as his race. Jidong would never imagine that he was now a treasure in the Fire Demon King's heart. He was reluctant to kill him. Of course, not killing him didn't mean that the Fire Demon King wouldn't hurt him, especially after he was injured. The Fire Demon King had already decided to teach this human boy a deep lesson. The eyes of the Fire Demon King changed strangely at this moment. His right eye shone like a sun, and an extremely strong golden light burst out in an instant. Suddenly, the sky on the left side of his body turned golden. Even Jidong had to look away and didn't dare to look at his dazzling golden right eye. The left eye of the Fire Demon King turned black at the same time. It was extremely deep, like a black hole. The space on the left side of his body also changed color in an instant. The range of the golden and black colors wasn't very large, but it was enough to include Jidong, but it didn't affect the other 2 sides of the battlefield. Demon Domain. This was the demon domain of the Fire Demon King, and the 2 demon domains bloomed at the same time. Jidong stood opposite the Fire Demon King in the air. In other words, the Yang Fire attribute demon domain of the Fire Demon King fell on the side, where he was used to using Yin Fire, and the other side was the same. The terrifying pressure made the fire elements in the air seem to be crushing Jidong's body. However, the power of this demon domain seemed to be like Jidong suffering from the erosion of a high-level ultimate skill. This feeling was indescribable in words. This was the true strength of a high-level Saint tier. The Fire Demon King was angry, and he finally wanted to deal with Jidong with all his might. On the other side, the Saint tier Fire Demon was also facing the same situation. Its huge body could no longer be seen as it was completely covered by the red lotuses floating in the air. Just like the Fire Spirit King and Hongyan's side, no one could see the situation on the battlefield over there. Due to the difference in magic power, Jidong couldn't move at all. Even if he wanted to vent the attack of the 6 curse in the air like before, he couldn't do it. It seemed that he could only bear the attack of the Fire Demon King and let himself be slaughtered. Is that really the case? No, of course not. As early as when he was about to face the Fire Devil King, Jidong understood that the situation might occur when he was about to face the Fire Devil King's high-ranked demon domain. The reality was similar to what he had expected, and he had already thought of a countermeasure. The gold and black light also rose from his body. Of course, compared to the Fire Demon King, it was much weaker. However, his gold and black light were not as distinct as the Fire Demon King. They hovered in an instant and merged into each other, turning into a Tai Chi pattern that appeared behind Jidong. Facing the powerful pressure of the Fire Demon King's demon domain, although Jidong couldn't expand the range of his Tai Chi demon domain, it was no problem for him to cover himself. That's right, the Fire Demon King's magic power was many times stronger than his. However, as the saying goes, everything has its conqueror. As soon as the Tai Chi demon domain appeared, the Fire Demon King's tyrannical suppression actually lost its effect on Jidong. No matter how powerful the Fire Demon King's demon domain was, the two extreme attributes of flames were separated. However, Jidong's demon domain was a complete fusion of yin and yang. At this moment, he was like the core of the Fire Demon King's two demon domains. No matter how powerful the Fire Demon King's demon domain was, it would never destroy its own people. In the third demon domain, the Fire Demon King only felt a strange feeling in his heart. Seeing Jidong release the third demon domain, if he was a little hesitant before, he was now completely sure that the human in front of him had completely fused the yin and yang flames. At the core of the Tai Chi demon domain, wasn't it the chaotic flame that he had been looking forward to? At this moment, a deep dragon roar sounded. The huge body of the sacred evolution fire dragon seemed to be separated from Jidong's Tai Chi demon domain. It carried Jidong and released its Tai Chi demon domain and the yin and yang flames, complementing Jidong's Tai Chi demon domain. This was not the end. Immediately after, a loud phoenix cry sounded. The eclipse phoenix Hua drilled out of Jidong's wrist and rose above Jidong's head. Another Tai Chi demon domain was formed. The three demon domains lined up and instantly connected with each other. The originally sluggish Tai Chi demon domain began to operate rapidly under the huge infusion of demon power. The Fire Demon King was shocked to find that when the Tai Chi demon domain of Jidong and the Dragon Phoenix rotated, a part of the demon domain that he released would be absorbed by them. It wasn't absorbed into his body, but revolved around the periphery of their demon domain. The original Tai Chi demon domain would weaken under the huge demon power. Kid, you brought me too many surprises. Without the slightest hesitation, any more hesitation would allow Jidong and the others to borrow more magic power from him. The Fire Devil King instantly retreated to his two demon domains. However, as soon as he retreated, the momentum reversed instantly. Instead, the Tai Chi demon domain reversed and enveloped him. A long roar came from Jidong's mouth. The opportunity he had created was probably the last opportunity. It had finally arrived. A dazzling red light bloomed from Jidong's hands above his head. The red light only burned for 4 meters before stopping. However, all 3 Tai Chi demon domains, as well as all the demon power that he had just borrowed from the Fire Demon King, swarmed towards the 4-feet-long red light. Jidong had long been prepared. When he retreated previously, he was already ready to make a move. At this moment, what he released was everything he could mobilize. The trump card that he had hidden previously was all released. This was his strongest attack, an attack that was completely at the saint level. It was also an attack that he didn't dare to try before he had a saint-level body. Jidong's main body, the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon, and the Eclipse Phoenix all released the Tai Chi Demon Domain and the Yin-Yang Double Fire Formation. All the demon power output was condensed under the command of Jidong's powerful soul. There was also the demon power stored in his continuation formation. Previously, he had used the Tai Chi Demon Domain to absorb a portion of the demon power that belonged to the Fire Demon King. Everything came to a conclusion. With Jidong's current ability and own demon power, it was impossible for him to control such a huge amount of demon power, let alone compress it. However, he still had the final trump card, the artifact from the Lord, the Fire God's Sword. The existence of the Fire God's Sword completely solved the problem of being unable to mobilize a huge amount of demon power. All the demon power became nutrients to nourish it. As the weapon of the Lord, it would have no problem absorbing even more demon power. Although the sword was only released to a length of 4 feet, it had already become the core of the entire sky at this moment. Even the other 2 battlefields had temporarily stopped because of its appearance. This sword was originally prepared by Ji Dong for the geocentric powerhouse. If the previous selection method had not changed, there was no doubt that the person who would receive this sword would be the saint-level fire demon. Even the fire demon king had to take it head-on under Ji Dong's ingenious control and operation. If it was the saint-level fire demon, this sword would very likely bring Ji Dong his first victory over a saint-level powerhouse. The fire demon king was shocked. He was really shocked. A human with such insignificant demon power could actually perform an attack that made him tremble. How is this possible? How is this possible? The Fire Devil King was, after all, the Fire Devil King. The moment he saw Ji Dong's final trump card, the Fire God Sword, appear, his first thought was to stop him. He must stop him. He couldn't let him unleash this attack. The Fire Demon King's left hand moved, and a dark purple-black pillar of light spread from his side towards Ji Dong at lightning speed. It was the ultimate skill, the Great Silent Ice Flame. Even if part of the demon power had been absorbed by Ji Dong and his body had just been withdrawn back into the demon domain, the Great Silent Ice Flame, released by the Fire Demon King with the strength of a high-level saint level, was enough to have the power of a high-level ultimate skill. As long as the process of the Fire God's sword absorbing the demon power was interrupted, Ji Dong would definitely lose. However, Ji Dong's preparations were much more ample than anyone could have imagined. Of course, he didn't know that he would be facing the Fire Devil King today, but his estimation of the Earth's core expert wasn't the slightest bit weaker. Since his final trump card had already appeared, how could he let the Fire Devil King interrupt him and ruin all his efforts? A sparkling red ball bounced out from Ji Dong's chest and abdomen. It flew out completely with the power of his waist and abdomen. At this moment, all of Ji Dong's demon power was condensed in the Fire God Sword in his hands. This ball of red light didn't have any assistance of demon power. It was just the simplest power of Ji Dong's saint-level body to bounce it out. The Fire Demon King saw it clearly. It was a small red bottle. He was very familiar with the material. It was the jade of the earth that was monopolized by the Fire Lotus tribe. There seemed to be a special liquid swaying in the jade of the earth. Although the jade of the earth was good, what could such a small piece of jade of the earth do? The answer, in the next moment, was already displayed in front of him. When that little bottle and his ice of yew flame collided, an incomparable roar sounded out. The piercing golden light was like an incomparably sturdy shield, blocking the path of the ice of yew flame. It was the Flame Monarch Chao's killing move, the Great Brilliant Sun Cone. Yes, after Ji Dong obtained the first batch of jade of the earth from the Fire Lotus tribe, he used a short period of time to create such an irregular bottle for today's battle. It contained high-grade whiskey, and the bottom of the bottle was engraved with the 5 elements formation. It was this top-grade jade of the earth that stored the Great Brilliant Sun Cone released by Ji Dong. This life-saving move finally played a decisive role at this moment. Chapter 558. The Great Brilliant Sun, all stored in the bottle of the jade of the earth, was a mid-level sure-kill technique. It was very lacking compared to the high-level Great Serene Flame Ice, but it wasn't working together with Ji Dong. Instead, it existed on its own. Hence, even though it wasn't enough to completely negate the power of the Great Serene Flame Ice, it was enough to stop the Great Serene Flame Ice from advancing and even change the direction of its attack. All Ji Dong needed was this short period of time. The Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon and the Eclipse Phoenix lost their luster at the same time. They could only rely on their instincts to float in the sky. At this moment, an indescribable red color had already transformed into a shocking rainbow that slashed forward. Freeze! The entire space on the 15th level seemed to freeze because of this slash. The remaining demonic power of the Fire Devil King's Great Serene Flame Ice actually vaporized when it came into contact with that red light. One end of that shocking rainbow was Ji Dong's Vulcan sword, while the other end had already landed on the Fire Devil King's body the instant the air froze. However, When the fire god slash was unleashed, Ji-dong's pupils constricted violently. He finally felt the true power of a high-level martial sage. The Fire Devil King's 12-meter-tall body had already transformed into a 2-meter-tall human form when the great brilliant sun, and the great serene flame, ice collided, blocking all spiritual undulations and vision. All the flames on his body seemed to have disappeared, leaving only a body that was half gold and half black. His appearance was very mediocre, and he looked just like an ordinary human. At this moment, his hands were clasped above his head and clamped down on the Vulcan sword that was descending from the sky. The monstrous killing intent dissipated the instant the Vulcan sword was clamped down, and the Fire Devil King's body that had transformed into a humanoid form had already turned completely red. With a soft clang, something unimaginable happened to Ji-dong. In the end, the red light still fell and fiercely slashed at the top of the Fire Devil King's head. Moreover, it flashed past and cut open his two-color body. This slash left a 1,000-meter-deep gorge on the 15th floor of the core world. However, at the same time, the split body of the Fire Demon King split into two. One was as black as ink, while the other was as shiny as gold. Yes, two bodies filled with their respective ultimate elements. Without the aura of a high-level saint-level expert, what was left was still the saint-level and low-level saint-level. The two low-level, saint-level Fire Demon Kings had already appeared on both sides of Ji-dong as if they had teleported. 1,000 years of cultivation, destroyed in an instant. Go to hell. They spoke at the same time, and their voices were cold and emotionless. Their fists also carried the terrifying attack power of a low-level saint-level expert as they blasted towards Ji-dong, whose mana was almost depleted, but was still holding onto the Vulcan sword. Regardless of how much benefit Ji-dong's yin-yang dual fire fusion could bring, the Fire Demon King had completely fallen into a berserk state when its body was severely injured. At this moment, it split into two and turned into a black and gold Fire Demon King. Not to mention Ji-dong, even the Fire Spirit King and Fire Lotus King, who were still fighting, were stunned. No one in the entire core world, or even the Fire Demon race, understood what was going on. It's over. That was Ji-dong's first reaction when he saw the Fire Demon King charging towards him. He had never thought that his all-out attack would result in such an outcome. His all-out attack had actually split the Fire Demon King into two. Even though their individual strength had been greatly weakened, they were still two saint-tier existences. At this moment, Ji-dong no longer had the strength to resist. He could only watch as the Yin and Yang Fire Demon Kings charged towards him with incomparably terrifying power. His saint-tier body couldn't withstand such an attack either. Death was the only outcome for him. No matter how smart Ji-dong was and how precise his plans were, everything had already exceeded his calculations. The Heavenly Stem Saints were far away, and their power was insufficient to stop the Fire Demon King's attack on Ji-dong. They could only watch as the golden and black lights engulfed Ji-dong's body. At this moment, the only person who was calm was Chen Xishuan. When she saw the Fire Demon King splitting into two, rushing towards Hyoheim, and eventually engulfing Ji-dong's body, a faint smile appeared on her beautiful face. Unfortunately, no one noticed her at this moment, let alone the change in her emotions. Everyone's attention was completely attracted by the golden and black lights. It's over. This thought also appeared in the minds of every Heavenly Stem Saint. They even forgot to use the five-element yin-yang boundary to escape this place. Their hearts felt like they were being torn apart by a massive force, and everyone had already fallen into a suffocating state. Miracles usually happened when everyone thought it was impossible. In the eyes of his comrades, Ji-dong was a miracle maker. However, they still couldn't believe what happened next. In less than a second after the black and gold lights engulfed Ji-dong's body, an unparalleled boom suddenly erupted from where Ji-dong was previously floating. The two Fire Demon Kings that had split into two were sent flying like cannonballs. They flew for 200 meters before they stabilized themselves. Even the flames on their bodies had disappeared at this moment. What was left was endless horror on their sinister faces. Ji-dong did not die. nor did he turn to ashes like the Earth's core experts had imagined. He was still floating there, quietly floating there, as if nothing had happened. His hands were raised on both sides of his body. His right hand had turned completely golden, and his left hand had turned completely black. He slowly opened his hands, and within his palms, there was a strange light flickering. The light wasn't very intense, but everyone could clearly see that a golden sun had lit up in his right palm, while a black moon had lit up in his left palm. The sun and the moon flickered with a faint light, and behind Jidong, two balls of light gradually unfurled and enlarged. An incomparably dignified aura accompanied the unfolding of the 100-meter-tall majestic body, which gradually became more and more solid. The dense fire elemental fluctuations on the 15th floor of the core world were actually being frantically absorbed by the two huge and imposing figures at this moment, causing their luster to become clearer and clearer. Jidong was floating there. His eyes were already closed, and the fire god's sword had already been retracted. His arms were still open, as if he was sensing something. In the sky, the battles on the other two sides had already stopped. The Fire Spirit King and the Fire Lotus King had also retracted their demonic domains. Their gazes were all focused on Jidong. The dense mana ripples and aura made every expert's eyes filled with astonishment. Because of the dignified aura emitted by the two great lights behind Jidong, even the Fire Lotus King and the Fire Spirit King had the urge to prostrate themselves in worship. The two 100-meter-tall lights were finally completely clear. They were clearly the enlarged versions of the Fire Demon King, especially the enlarged versions of his body. Weren't they the figures of the Fire Tyrant King and the Dark Flame Devil King? The lights of the two kings slowly turned around and faced each other. Their forehands were clasped together in the air and were raised high, shrouding Jidong's body below. After they appeared, the endless dignified aura was also transmitted into Jidong's body, as if the dignified aura was branded on Jidong's body. With a plop, a relatively weaker fire demon knelt down in front of Jidong in the sky. Then, this situation seemed to be contagious, as the clansmen of the fire demon race knelt down one after another. They were simply too familiar with this kind of dignified aura. It was impossible to fake. Even the queen of the flaming bar couldn't do it. Only the two kings who had led them to rule the entire core world for thousands of years could have such a dignified aura. At this moment, they completely didn't think about why this dignified aura would appear on Jidong. All they could think about was that their old master had returned. The old master who had led them to stand at the peak of the core world had returned. In the sky, the golden sun and the dark moon in Jidong's hands gradually changed. His hands became brighter and brighter, especially the two brands. The golden sun was shining with pure golden light, while the dark moon was surrounded by a ring of purple light. As the light shone, they seemed to become bigger and bigger. When the two balls of light expanded to a diameter of 1 meter, they actually separated from Jidong's hands and floated up. With a soft hum, the golden sun and the dark moon instantly rose to the sky of the 15th layer of the core world. Their light covered the entire 15th layer and was many times more powerful than the demonic power released by the Fire Demon King previously. In particular, the endless dignified aura that was emitted was far from what the Fire Demon King could compare to. Only the two kings back then could release such an aura. The Flame Tyrant King and the Dark Flame Devil King were the pinnacle existences of the Fire Demon race. Although they only had one attribute, they had both cultivated to the peak of the saint tier. At this moment, even the existence of their consciousness was enough to subdue the entire Fire Demon race. The two Fire Demon Kings, floating in the sky, also slowly landed on the ground. Although they did not kneel on the ground like the other Fire Demons, the anger and negative emotions in their eyes had already disappeared. What was left was only reverence. The Saint Tier Fire Demon that had fought with the Fire Lotus King had already landed among the clansmen and also knelt on both knees, worshipping there without moving. The golden sun and the dark moon in the sky gradually approached each other. As they approached each other, The illusory figures of the two kings behind Jidong became extremely solid. Under the illumination of the golden sun and the dark moon, their tightly clasped hands seemed to freeze. Their gazes met, filled with understanding, as well as an unimaginable harmony among the fire demon clansmen. At this moment, the light in the sky seemed to affect the hearts of every fire demon clansman. When they stole glances at each other, the barrier between the dark flame devil and the blazing flame devil seemed to be gradually disappearing due to the influence of the light in the sky. The golden sun and the dark moon finally drifted together. Their originally incompatible light actually started to entangle with each other. At this moment, a ball of milky white light shot out from Jidong's mouth. This light shot up and landed right in the middle of the golden sun and dark moon. Its appearance was like glue, firmly attracting the golden sun and dark moon together. The dense mana fluctuations instantly rose to the peak. Yin and Yang were both flames, but they were completely different. However, at this moment, they were inseparable. Regardless of whether it was the golden sun or the dark moon, they actually melted in the air silently. Then, they blended together, fused together, and started spinning. Only the ball of milky white light in the center did not change. The spinning speed became faster and faster. Gradually, a Tai Chi diagram of Yin and Yang appeared in the air. The gold gradually became white, while the black became even darker. Wasn't it a Tai Chi diagram? Jidong spoke slowly. His voice changed, becoming extremely dignified and old. At the beginning of the chaos, it was divided into Yin and Yang. Yin and Yang were originally one. However, my clan was ignorant and forcefully separated Yin and Yang, causing Yin and Yang to be out of balance. Not only were we forever unable to pursue the peak of that power, our inner world was also affected due to the imbalance of Yin and Yang, resulting in the internal strife back then. Fortunately, the appearance of the Flaming Bar Empress prevented the two of us from committing a grave mistake. Afterwards, we were branded into the human Jidong's body and fused with him. Although we lost the great power we once had, our souls were sublimated, and we finally understood the profound meaning behind the fusion of Yin and Yang. Solitary Yin does not grow. Solitary Yang does not grow. From today onwards, the inheritor of the two of us will control the entire clan and pass this Yin and Yang cultivation method to you. He will also inherit the mantle of the goddess of the Flaming Bar and work hard for the peace of the core world. Those who go against this will have their souls disintegrated. Darkness, bright flame, come forward. Yes, master. The two fire devil kings that were slashed apart by Jidong's sword took a step forward at the same time. Finally, they knelt on the ground as if a mountain of gold had been pushed down and a jade pillar toppled. They kowtowed towards Jidong, who was in the air. At this moment, they no longer had any doubts, because the only people who knew their names were the Flame Tyrant King and the Dark Flame Devil King. The dignified voice sounded again. Jidong has inherited both of our brands. With this brand protecting him, even if the people of our clan become gods, they will not be able to harm him. You have done well. What happened today is not your fault, but the separation of Yin and Yang in our clan. From today onwards, you must properly assist Jidong. Chapter 559. The majestic voice of the king reverberated in the air. Our soul consciousness will also truly merge with Jidong. Everything will be led by him, and he will definitely help our fire demon race to find the true path forward. Master, the two fire demon kings cried out in sorrow at the same time. Don't be sad. We haven't disappeared. Jidong is our inheritance. As long as he is given enough time, he will definitely become a god. Even the queen of the Flaming Bar will be his woman. The Holy Church of the Flaming Bar doesn't need an acting bishop anymore. No one is more suitable than him to be the bishop. The majestic voice gradually faded, and the black and white Tai Chi Yin-Yang fish in the air also slowly descended and floated towards Jidong. At this moment, there was a sudden change. A strange red light suddenly flew towards Jidong's head at an unparalleled speed. Its target was Jidong's forehead. Its speed was so fast that it was even faster than the Tai Chi Yin fish that was descending from the sky. It was obvious that it wanted to stop Ji-dong from merging with the Tai Chi Yin fish. Unfortunately, everything seemed to have been destined. Just when the red light was less than 30 meters away from Ji-dong, a gorgeous red lotus suddenly appeared in front of Ji-dong and blocked the red light's path. "Fire Lotus King, are you crazy?" The Fire Spirit King's voice was filled with shock and anger. The strange red light also revealed its true form. Wasn't it the Fire Spirit King? The Fire Lotus King looked at the Fire Spirit King coldly and said, "I'm not crazy. You're the crazy one. Didn't you hear what the two kings said just now?" The Fire Spirit King said anxiously, "It's because I heard it that I have to do this. Otherwise, when the Fire Demon race completes the Yin and Yang fusion, how will there be space for our race to survive?" During their short conversation, the Tai Chi Yin fish finally landed and disappeared after being branded on Ji-dong's chest. Ji-dong's body trembled slightly, but he still floated there. The two kings' virtual images behind him quickly overlapped and then turned into a ball of light that merged back into his body. The golden sun and dark moon that appeared on his palm had completely disappeared. The Fire Lotus King said faintly, "The two kings are right. Ji-dong not only inherited their imprint, but he's also the husband of the Flaming Bar. Although he is a human, he is also a member of the Fire Lotus race. How can we allow you to hurt him?" What's more, the two kings also said that the reason why the Fire Demon race has done so many wrong things is mainly because they have never been able to fuse Yin and Yang. They took the wrong path, which caused their race to be violent. When they learn the Yin and Yang fusion, perhaps everything will change. The Fire Spirit King's eyes flickered with uncertainty. He said in a deep voice, "This is only the two kings' one-sided statement. You've only been on the 15th level for a short time, so you don't know what happened back then. Back then, when the Fire Demon race ruled the entire core world, the core world could be said to be in a state of chaos. I can't let such a situation happen again. How can I believe the two kings' one-sided statement? What's more, Fire Lotus King, you're too gullible. How can you be sure that this human named Ji-dong is really the lover of the Flaming Bar Queen? This is simply unimaginable. With Her Majesty's power, how can she have anything to do with a human?" Fire Lotus King Lian sighed and said, "It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. This is the truth. Moreover, when Ji-dong came to the Flaming Bar to participate in the Holy Church's proxy bishop selection celebration, I already knew about the relationship between him and Her Majesty. There's a soul memory. When Ji-dong wakes up, I can ask him to show it to you. Can't a soul memory be faked?" The Fire Spirit King still had a face of disbelief. He had experienced the period when the two kings ruled. The darkness of the entire core world during that period was something he could never forget. That kind of pain could not be described with words. At this very moment, seeing that the Fire Demon race was showing signs of recovery, how could he not stop it? At this moment, all of a sudden, Fire Lotus King's body trembled violently. She turned around abruptly, and her pupils instantly contracted rapidly. Right behind her, Ji-dong's body had completely turned golden red. It was the color that belonged to his unique brilliance. Within the golden red color, a faint radiance was emitted continuously. At the same time, golden red lotus seeds flew out from his body and appeared in front of all the powerhouses in the core world. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. A total of 9 lotus seeds revolved around Ji-dong's body quietly. Every lotus seed emitted the same aura. Compared to the endless majesty of the two kings, this aura was gentler, but it was of a higher realm. The more powerful the powerhouse in the core world, the more they could feel it. Moreover, they had a deeper memory of this aura. This was clearly the aura of the Flaming Bar Queen. After the entire Fire Demon race knelt down, when the 9 natal red lotus seeds of the Flaming Bar appeared, the members of the Fire Lotus race also knelt down one after another under Hong Yan's lead. They looked at Ji-dong, or more accurately, at the 9 lotus seeds revolving around Ji-dong's body. Their gazes became extremely passionate. After losing contact with the Flaming Bar Queen for such a long time, they finally saw a part of the body of the great Flaming Bar Queen again. They could feel the extremely powerful, yet extremely gentle aura again. Yes, this was the natal lotus seed of the Flaming Bar Queen. The Fire Spirit King was also stunned. There was no need for the Fire Lotus King to explain anything. To the Fire Lotus race, nothing was more important than the natal Red Lotus seed. The Flaming Bar Queen had even given the natal Red Lotus seed to Jidong. This was already enough to prove many things. The Queen of the Flaming Bar Queen was really gone. This was the first thought that came to the Fire Lotus King's mind at that moment. The undulations of his soul suddenly became intense. The Fire Lotus King slowly bowed to the Fire Spirit King and said, "Senior, ever since Her Majesty left, thank you for your concern and help to the Fire Lotus race. Without you, we might have been devoured by the Fire Demon race. Now that the natal Red Lotus seed of Her Majesty has reappeared in the core world, we can only support the owner of the seed no matter what. You should be very clear that if Her Majesty isn't willing, even a divine king can't take her natal Red Lotus seed for himself. Today, isn't Jidong also representing Her Majesty to come to the core world? There's no need to say anything more about the victory of the last election. The Fire Lotus race has decided to fully support Jidong as the leader of the Holy Church. There's no substitute." After hearing the Fire Lotus King's words, the Fire Spirit King's anxious gaze gradually calmed down. On the ground, the two Fire Demon Kings also stood up at the same time. They looked at the Fire Lotus King and the Fire Spirit King in the sky and said in unison, "We are the same. We unconditionally support Jidong to lead us and even the entire core world. The Fire Demon race will definitely follow him for life." The Fire Spirit King's gaze finally became silent. At this moment, the two kings' imprints had completely integrated with Jidong's body. No matter what he did, he couldn't change this. Moreover, two of the three major races supported Jidong. He even stood out from the selection ceremony for the substitute leader. At this moment, everything was irreversible. The Fire Spirit race was originally in the core world. What else could it say at this moment? The Fire Spirit King let out a long sigh and said, "Since all of you have decided and he has obtained the final victory in the selection, then let him be the leader." However, the word substitute can't be removed for the time being. After all, the Holy Church leader of the Flaming Bar concerns the survival of the entire core world. We have to observe him for a period of time before making a decision. Moreover, his current strength is not enough for him to fully take on the position of the Holy Church leader. What the Fire Spirit King said was very pertinent. In terms of strength, even the Fire Spirit King and the Fire Lotus King wouldn't stand a chance if they faced Jidong carefully, let alone the Fire Demon King, who was originally a high-level sage. The Fire Lotus King nodded slowly, acknowledging the Fire Spirit King's intention. The two Fire Demon Kings snorted. Obviously, they weren't interested in the Fire Spirit King's words. However, their bodies were separated by Jidong's sword, so their strength had become primary-level sage. Two primary-level sage might not be a match for a middle-level sage. Therefore, although they were dissatisfied, there was nothing else they could do. The Fire Lotus King stole a glance at Chen Xishuan, who was in the crowd, but Chen Xishuan didn't look at her. The Fire Lotus King couldn't help but recall what Chen Xishuan said to her that day. That day, Chen Xishuan told the Fire Lotus King that Jidong was the true inheritor of the two kings. It was such a simple sentence that made the Fire Lotus King believe that Jidong would be able to achieve good results in the selection. Rather than saying that Jidong's strength was shocking and he was able to obtain the final victory in the selection, it would be better to say that the Flaming Bar's ingenious arrangement had already begun when the two kings' imprints were imparted to him. After the Flaming Bar killed the Flame Tyrant King and the Dark Flame Devil King, the two kings were martial saints after all. Although their physical bodies were destroyed, their martial saints' souls weren't so easily destroyed. Hence, the Flaming Bar couldn't bear to kill them completely. Hence, the Flaming Bar reached an agreement with the two kings to release all of their abilities, leaving only their soul memories. If there was a suitable opportunity, the flaming bar would help them pass on these memories. Later on, the flaming bar got to know Jidong. After carefully observing Jidong's character, in addition to the fact that the two kings liked Jidong's personality, they gave the two kings imprints to Jidong. It wasn't as simple as just memories, but also the two kings' soul consciousness. It was a powerful soul consciousness that was only a step away from being promoted to divine consciousness. If there wasn't such a powerful soul consciousness that had been nourishing Jidong's soul world, he wouldn't have been able to possess a martial saint intermediate soul consciousness at the age of 20, no matter how many fortuitous encounters he had. If the opponent Jidong was facing was someone else, Chen Sichuan would of course be extremely nervous. However, he was facing the Fire Devil King. Not to mention that the Fire Devil King was only a martial saint advanced. Even if it was a martial saint peak, it wouldn't be able to hurt Jidong. Any skills used by the Fire Demon clan couldn't hurt Jidong because of the two kings' imprints on him. Hence, no matter what happened, the flaming bar was always calm. As for the secret of the Fire Devil King itself, the flaming bar also knew about it. In the beginning, the Flame King and the Dark Flame Devil King each had a follower, which was the current two Fire Devil Kings. They had followed the two kings for many years. Under the two kings' cultivation, their strength improved extremely quickly. After the flaming bar ruled the core world, they secretly cultivated and used a special method to temporarily merge. Their strength increased rapidly, and they unified the Fire Demon clan. As for the 10-meter-tall martial saint-level Fire Demon, it was an experimental product. After losing the lives of more than 10 pairs of clansmen, they finally cultivated such a temporary fusion body that was in the same physical state as them, and thus also possessed the martial saint-level strength. Jidong slashed with the Fire God Sword. Although he couldn't kill them, he cut off the connection between them. In this way, they also revealed their original strength. Previously, when they said that 1,000 years of cultivation was destroyed in a day, they were not joking. In order to temporarily merge and improve their strength, they really paid the price of 1,000 years to complete it. However, at this moment, all of this was no longer important. Hearing his master's voice again, and his master's life imprint had been passed down, Noisewater was happier than them. It could be said that the meaning of these two Fire Demon Kings' existence was to inherit the will of the two great lords and make the Fire Demon race stronger again. Now that the two great lords had given their orders and passed down their life imprints to Jidong, their original hostility towards Jidong and the idea of using him had long disappeared, and they became the most loyal ones. They were too familiar with the two great lords, more familiar with them than anyone else. Because of this, when the two great lords' voices appeared, they did not have any doubts at all. Originally, Jidong's greatest enemy was the Fire Demon race. However, from this moment onwards, his firmest ally in the core world was also the Fire Demon race. In fact, they were even more supportive of him than the Fire Lotus race. Absolutely unconditional support. On the Fire Lotus race's side, it could be said that the Fire Lotus race acknowledged Jidong because of the love between him and the Flaming Bar. On the other hand, the Fire Demon race directly treated him as their clan leader. However, the cultivation of the two Fire Demon Kings was not as strong as when they merged. Otherwise, when they saw the Fire Spirit King about to attack Jidong, they would have rushed up long ago. Of course, if the Fire Lotus King did not stop them, they would definitely not let the Fire Spirit King hurt Jidong, even if they died. At this moment, Jidong, who was floating in midair, slowly opened his eyes. The Divine Fire Saint King armor on his body slowly disappeared, revealing his body. Chapter 560. The clothes on Jidong's upper body had already turned into ashes. His black hair was tied behind his back, and his eyes were shining with a golden-red luster. On his chest, the yin-yang fish that was shining with a dazzling black and white luster was quietly rotating in front of his chest. Although he had his eyes closed previously, he was very clear about everything that was happening in the outside world. At this moment, he wasn't happy that he had become the acting bishop of the Flaming Bar. Instead, he was looking at the 9 natal red lotus seeds of the Flaming Bar revolving around him in a daze. Let's go down. The Fire Spirit King nodded towards the Fire Lotus King. The two supreme elders floated down at the same time and landed beside the two Fire Demon Kings. The four geocentric saints looked at each other and nodded. The Fire Spirit King said loudly, "Geocentric saints greet the acting bishop." As he spoke, the four saint-rank powerhouses knelt down at the same time under his lead. Even they had knelt down, how could the geocentric saints and the core elders of the other races not kneel down as well? In an instant, at the entrance of the 15th floor of the geocentric world, apart from the heavenly stem saints, everyone from the geocentric world knelt down and kowtowed towards Jidong. The Fire Spirit King and the Fire Lotus King both knelt down on one knee. They were the supreme elders of the Flaming Bar and had different statuses, so it was enough for them to kneel down on one knee. However, the Fire Demon King was even more thorough. The two Fire Demon Kings knelt down on both knees, and their eyes shone with unconcealable excitement. They actually led the entire race to kowtow towards Jidong. Intense mana waves reverberated in the air. Jidong smiled. He could feel the pious aura in the air, especially from the sincere worship from the Fire Demon King and the Fire Lotus race. However, he felt so sour in his heart. He thought to himself, "Flaming Bar, do you see this? I finally did it. I didn't disappoint you. I've finally inherited your position as the leader of the Flaming Bar Church. I know what you want to see the most. Don't worry, I'll definitely accomplish everything for you. The core needs peace. I won't bring war here, nor will I destroy everything in the core. I'll definitely accomplish what you want. This will never, ever change. Flaming Bar, I've already helped you solve the problem in the core world. Can I go look for you soon? Don't worry. I'll do my best to nurture an expert who's strong enough to take over the position of sect leader. Then, I'll find 10 types of wine and settle the matter of the 5 elements continent. When that time comes, I'll be able to find you in peace. 10 years is a long time. I can't wait. I really can't wait. Do you know how much suffering I have to endure every day?" Chen Sichuan looked into Jidong's eyes. At this moment, wasn't her heart fluctuating just like Jidong's? "My Jidong, you finally inherited my position in the core world. Even though you're not strong enough now, I believe that one day you'll become stronger than me. You have many qualities that I don't. Hurry up and become stronger. With the core world as your backing, even if we lose the war in the surface world, you'll still have a place to stay, won't you? This is what I hope to see the most. From the day I became Chen Sichuan, your safety has already surpassed the core world in my heart. I'm no longer the queen of the core world. I'm just a little woman who loves you. Hey, Sichuan, don't look at me. Your eyes are dripping with tenderness." Meow Meow nudged Chen Sichuan lightly and chuckled. Weren't the heavenly stem holy disciples the ones who experienced the most emotional ups and downs? Who would have thought that the final outcome would be like this? They thought that Jidong was going to die in the hands of the Fire Devil King. Who knew that not only did Jidong come back from the dead, but he also became the acting sect leader of the Holy Church of Flaming Bar and the ruler of the entire 18 levels of the core world in such a short period of time. Do you dare to believe it? Fury smiled. Little Junior Brother's identity as the son-in-law of the Earth's core has finally taken effect. I thought we were going to be stuck here. Little Junior Brother has gained another title. I think he probably doesn't even remember how many titles he has now. Yao Qianshu let out a long sigh and said, "No matter what, we've finally passed this hurdle." Jidong slowly landed on the ground. After the two great sovereigns' imprints completely fused with his body, all the skills of the two sovereigns were imprinted in his mind. Some of them were skills that he knew before, and some that he didn't know before. At the same time, his mana had finally broken through to level 86. As for the experience of actual combat and mana control, it wasn't something that could be measured by levels. To him, the battle with the advanced Saint Tier Fire Devil King was more valuable than the increase in his mana level. "Everyone, get up." Jidong's calm voice could be heard clearly by every Earth's core expert. If Jidong didn't become the acting leader of the Earth's core world, none of the Earth's core experts would be convinced by him. To be able to be here, especially those who had participated in the selection, Every single one of them had a higher mana level than him. However, Ji-dong's incomparably stunning performance in the selection, especially the powerful strength he displayed in the battle with the Fire Devil King, had already earned him the recognition of these Earth's core creatures. Although his mana wasn't very strong, his overall strength wasn't inferior to a normal Saint-tier expert. The Earth's core experts stood up one after another and looked at Ji-dong, waiting for him to speak. Ji-dong said, "Thank you everyone for your love, allowing me to become the acting leader of the Earth's core world's Flaming Bar Holy Church. However, I want to remind everyone, especially the stronger races, if I find out that there's a civil war between the various races in the future, especially in a situation like extermination, then don't blame me for being ruthless. The celebration is over. All the core elders and the elders who are here to observe the ceremony can return." With a simple sentence, he sent away the experts who were not on the 15th floor. Naturally, it didn't dare to say anything else, and after bowing to Hyoheim, they passed through the passageway between the 15th and 14th floors. Although Ji-dong, the acting leader, could not completely convince them, but with the support of the three great clans, what else did they dare say? Especially when the Fire Devil King displayed that was close to blind worship, it made these Earth's core experts restrain their emotions. Very quickly, all the Earth's core experts had left. Ji-dong said, "Fire Devil King, Fire Spirit King, and Fire Lotus King, I want to talk to you." "Yes, let's go to our castle then," the two Fire Devil Kings said in unison. Perhaps it was because they had fused for too long, but whether it was the way they spoke or the way they walked, they were almost exactly the same. The Fire Spirit King glanced at the Fire Lotus King and nodded. Ji-dong had just inherited the position of the acting leader of the Holy Church, and he also wanted to understand this human further. He was especially curious about Ji-dong and the Flaming Bar. The clansmen of the three great clans dispersed, and the two Fire Devil Kings brought everyone, including the Heavenly Stem Saints, back to the Fire Demon Clan's castle. Compared to the Fire Lotus Clan's castle, the Fire Demon Clan's castle was almost twice the size, and the various buildings inside were also much more magnificent. Moreover, it could be seen at a glance that the Fire Demon Clan's castle had existed for a much longer time than the Fire Sway Clan's. The Fire Devil King brought everyone back to his living quarters. There was one thing that was similar to the Fire Lotus Clan's. The Fire Devil King's living quarters were also terrifyingly simple, but because of his huge body, his living quarters were also much bigger. Ji-dong felt the two Fire Devil Kings looking at him fervently, and he couldn't help but find it funny. Were these still the Fire Devil Kings that wanted to enslave and even kill him? Moreover, he could clearly feel that the two Fire Devil Kings' soul ripples weren't fake at all. The Fire Devil King closed the door, scratched his head, and said, "Leader, I heard that the human world pays particular attention to sitting while talking, but we don't have such a saying here. If you want to sit, I'm afraid you can only sit on the ground." The two of them intentionally omitted the word acting and even seemed to be flattering him. Ji-dong smiled and shook his head. "It's fine, just stand." As he spoke, his gaze shifted to the Fire Lotus King's pretty face, which was almost the same as the Flaming Bar. "Fire Lotus King, I want to go to the 18th floor of the Earth's core. How can I get there?" The Fire Lotus King was stunned for a moment. The 18th floor of the Earth's core? The Fire Devil King hurriedly said, "Leader, you can't go there. Even we can't survive there for too long. These Earth's core Red Lotus can't go back after leaving the 18th floor. Only the Empress of the Flaming Bar and our two masters can go there." The two masters once said that unless it's a creature that originally existed there, it's impossible to enter without the strength of a Saint Realm pinnacle. That's the true Earth's core. The Fire Lotus King glared at the two Fire Devil Kings. "You can't go there, but it doesn't mean that Leader can't go there. Don't forget that Leader has the Empress's 9 natal Red Lotus seeds. With these seeds, it's enough for you to go to the 18th floor." The Fire Spirit King nodded. Indeed, with the Empress's natal Lotus seed as a guard, there shouldn't be a problem. Ji-dong asked, "You're already the most powerful race in the Earth's core world besides the Flaming Bar. I'm very curious. Why did you choose to live in the 15th floor instead of the 16th and 17th floor?" Are these two floors as hard to survive as the 18th floor? The Fire Spirit King nodded. It's not that it's hard to survive, but the fire element in those two floors is different from the floors above. The Fire Spirit King nodded and said, it's not that it's difficult to survive, but the fire elements in those two layers are different from those in the upper layers. The 16th layer is also called the dark flame layer. The entire 16th layer is pitch black and is composed of endless dark flames. The purity of the dark flames is like the ultimate skill of the dark flame Devil King. Apart from Her Majesty the Flame Empress, only the dark flame Devil King can survive there for a long time. Among the three great clans, the Fire Spirit Clan and the Fire Lotus Clan have both yin and yang attributes, so they naturally can't live there. Although the clansmen of the Fire Demon Clan have the dark flame attribute, if they want to cultivate there, they need to be at least High Saint realm and above, which they are far from being able to do. So naturally, no one lives there. The 17th layer is the bright flame layer, and the situation is similar to the 16th layer. After listening to the words of the three supreme elders, Jidong couldn't help but have doubts in his heart. Since the 16th, 17th, and 18th floors are so dangerous, how did he survive when he reached the 18th floor without any mana? Although the 18th floor brought him a lot of pressure and such a rich fire element, he didn't feel that his life was threatened. As he thought about it, Jidong raised his doubts. The Fire Lotus King was obviously the most qualified to answer his question. Among the Supreme Elders, only he had lived on the 18th floor. He sighed softly and said, then it must be Her Majesty's protection. When you first arrived on the 18th floor, Her Majesty must have already discovered your identity as a human before you were teleported over. Hence, she used her own power to suppress the terror of the 18th floor. After that, every time you were teleported over, Her Majesty used the same method to suppress the terror of the fusion of yin and yang on the 18th floor, allowing you to survive there and absorb the pure fire element there. If I'm not wrong, the environment on the 18th floor will gradually become stronger as your power grows. That way, you will always feel the appropriate pressure and absorb enough fire element. Jidong's heart trembled. That's right. In the past, every time he went to the core world, he would either be cultivating or paying attention to the flaming bar. He never paid attention to this. After the Fire Lotus King's reminder, wasn't it just as she said? The environment on the 18th floor had always given him the same feeling. Furthermore, his cultivation had increased countless times from the time he first arrived until the time he fought Shupness in the flaming bar. The fact that the feeling didn't change proved that the environment had changed. When he thought about this, Jidong couldn't help but tear up. Flaming bar, you've done so much for me silently, but I've never discovered it. I'm so stupid. The Fire Lotus King continued. After seeing your soul's memory, I'm even more certain of this. You couldn't have survived on the 18th floor. Otherwise, after the battle between the Empress and the Sky God, she wouldn't have used her power to send you back to the surface world. Chapter 561. The Fire Lotus King continued angrily. The core world is more suitable for your cultivation. If it was possible, why didn't Her Majesty let you stay on the 18th floor until you were strong enough to leave? It's because the environment there is too harsh. Without her suppression, you wouldn't be able to endure it. That's why she teleported you back to the human world. Don't say any more. Jidong interrupted the Fire Lotus King. At that moment, his heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. His longing for the flaming bar surged uncontrollably. The sacred ruler armor appeared on its own. What everyone couldn't see was that all the spikes in the sacred ruler armor pierced into Jidong's body. Even though they couldn't pierce through his skin, they brought him excruciating pain. However, even though his body was in pain, it couldn't compare to the pain in his heart. Chen Xishuan glanced at the Fire Lotus King sternly and hurried to Jidong's side. She grabbed his clenched fist and comforted him with her gentleness. The Fire Lotus King lowered her head. She also felt that she had said too much, but she couldn't help it. Raging Flame was dead, and now there was only Chen Xishuan, and all of this was because of this human in front of her. Even though the love between him and Raging Flame had touched the Fire Lotus King, She had lost her big sister because of this love. She had said so much out of righteous indignation. I want to go to the 18th floor. Jidong shook off Chen Xishuan's hand and said firmly, I want to go to the 18th floor. I want to see what it's like without the protection of the flaming bar. The Fire Lotus King nodded silently. Jidong turned towards the heavenly stem saints and said in a deep voice, Our training in the Earth's core this time could be considered to have come to an end. Everyone, let's teleport back first. I will stay in the Earth's core for a period of time, but it won't be too long. I will definitely meet up with all of you before the third day of sacrifice. Fury nodded, putting aside the fact that they wouldn't be of much help to Jidong even if they stayed. They weren't fire element magicians. They'd had enough of staying in the core world that was filled with fire elements. Jidong, we'll wait for you at MT Amatsi. Jidong said, All right, you guys can leave now. It's been hard for everyone to cultivate in the core world. Once we get out, we'll have to adjust ourselves. I'm afraid everyone will need some time to adapt to the outside world. Jidong, let me stay with you, okay? Chen Xishuan couldn't help but ask. Jidong frowned and said, No, you are of the wood attribute. The environment here is not suitable for you in the first place. Furthermore, I want to go to the 18th level of the Earth's core. How can I bring you along? You can go with the others. His words were filled with no room for doubt. The Fire Lotus King, who was beside him, couldn't stand it anymore. Just as he wanted to say something, Chen Xishuan used her divine sense to touch him, so he didn't say anything. Of course, Jidong couldn't make Chen Xishuan stay. Putting the environment aside, he wanted to go to the place where he was with the flaming bar. How could he bring a woman there? In the end, Chen Xishuan teleported away with the heavenly stem holy disciples. Before she left, she used her weak divine sense to communicate with the Fire Lotus King. As for what they said, only they knew. Anyway, after Chen Xishuan left, the Fire Lotus King regained his composure. His attitude toward Jidong was also respectful and didn't say anything else. The heavenly stem holy disciples also left, leaving only Jidong and a few supreme elders in the Fire Demon King's castle. The Fire Lotus King asked, Leader, when do you plan to go to the 18th level? Jidong thought for a while and said, I have a few things to discuss with you guys. After that, I'll go to the 18th level. After that, I'll return to the human world from there. The Fire Demon King said reluctantly, Leader, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Jidong smiled faintly and said, Don't worry. Before I leave, I'll leave a chaotic seed for you. As long as you cultivate according to my instructions, with your initial stage martial saint cultivation base, it won't take long for you to achieve something. However, the Fire Demon tribe is a single entity now. If you want a fire demon that can truly integrate yin and yang, I'm afraid you guys can only start from the next generation. I think you guys should be able to understand what I mean. Of course, as long as you guys cultivate according to my instructions and work together, there won't be a problem using the yin and yang fusion demon skill. The two Fire Demon Kings nodded at the same time. Although it was a pity, it was enough for them to use the yin and yang fusion demon skill when they worked together. After listening to Jidong's words, the Fire Spirit King also heaved a sigh of relief. According to what Jidong said, the Fire Demon tribe wouldn't be able to instantly become stronger in a short period of time. Moreover, the two Fire Demon Kings' cultivation base had fallen to the initial stage martial saint. Even if they used the yin and yang fusion demon skill, they wouldn't be stronger than him. The three-legged balance would continue for a long time. Jidong said to the Fire Demon King, I have something for you guys to do. No matter what, you guys must do it well. No problem. Leave it to us. The two Fire Demon Kings looked at each other and said in unison. Jidong said, Ever since the core world was unified by the flaming bar, the overall peace has been restored. However, due to the disparity in strength between the races, it has almost become a habit for the stronger races to bully the weaker races. I've been in the core world for a few months, and I've seen everything clearly. Therefore, I want you to send out the Fire Demon tribe to form a monitoring team to wander around the various layers of the core world. Once they encounter any bullying or belittling, show no mercy. Do you understand what I mean? A sharp light flashed across the eyes of the two fire demon kings, and they nodded heavily. Ji Dong said faintly, I only hope that there won't be a situation where the elders of the various races aren't present during the Holy Church's celebration. Even the weakest fire demon tribe has the right to participate in the celebration. Although they don't have the strength to come to the 15th layer, you guys can also send people to protect them. If you want the Holy Church to obtain the support of all the races, then you have to treat everyone equally. Don't forget that without the fruits grown by the fire demon tribe, most of the races in the core world wouldn't be able to survive. These weak but large races are the foundation of the core world's reproduction. After hearing Ji Dong's words, the Fire Spirit King and the Fire Lotus King nodded. This had always been a huge problem that troubled the core world. However, because the Fire Demon tribe was gradually becoming stronger, they had to focus all their energy on fighting against the Fire Demon tribe and couldn't take care of it. At this moment, Ji Dong wanted the Fire Demon tribe to be the monitoring team. It was obviously the most suitable choice. As he inherited the legacy of the two Fire Demon Kings, the Fire Demon Kings could be said to be obedient to Ji Dong. In addition to the relationship between Ji Dong and the Flaming Bar, it could be said that the three major races of the core world had welcomed an unprecedented period of peace. Ji Dong continued, There's one more thing that requires the three major races and the entire Holy Church to work together. In order to prevent the situation of the strong races suppressing the weak races, we have to completely separate the layers of our core world. Only then, the strong races won't be able to easily invade the weak races' territory. In other words, the guards between the layers must be greatly strengthened in order to achieve this goal. The Fire Demon King patted his chest confidently. That's not a problem. I'll send 2 clansmen to hold the fort. Let's see who dares to disobey the Holy Church's orders. Ji Dong sighed. What I've said are all methods. If we want the core world to be completely peaceful, we still need everyone to work together. Not only the 3 major races, but also every race in the core world. I'll have to rely on you guys. I'm a human after all, so I can't stay in the core world for long. The Fire Demon King chuckled. Leader, it's fine even if you stay for a long time. Isn't this place more suitable for you to cultivate? Ji Dong smiled bitterly. There are too many things in the human world that are holding me back. If there's really a day where I can calm down, it'll be time for me to look for the Flaming Bar. After hearing his words, the gazes of the few supreme elders became somewhat strange, especially the Fire Lotus Monarch. When she saw the trace of loneliness and sorrow that flashed in the depths of Ji Dong's eyes, her heart unconsciously throbbed in pain. Ji Dong said, Fire Lotus King, I'll have to trouble you. I have a great use for the jade of the earth. Prepare more for me, and I'll take it away. At the same time, I have a question to ask you guys. The core world is not allowed to go to the surface world. Does that mean all races are not allowed? Is there any possibility of changing this restriction? The Fire Lotus King thought that he was afraid that the core world's creatures would cause trouble in the human world, and said, I've already asked Hong Yin to prepare a batch of jade of the earth before the qualifiers started. I'm afraid that we can't make more in a short period of time. As for the sealing of the core world, it has been since the birth of the core world. Don't worry, leader, every exit of the core world is guarded by experts. Furthermore, when it leads to the surface world, there are also 100 meters of magma. This ensures that at least the 1st to 5th layer of the core world are unable to leave the core world. And from the 5th layer onwards, one could be considered to have entered the edge of the core world. That is strictly forbidden, because in the bloodline of the core world below the 5th layer, there is a special substance. Once we leave the core world, we will immediately die. Therefore, the core world is equivalent to an independent existence. It will definitely not affect the surface world, unless we find a way to remove the restriction in our bodies. Her Majesty, the Flaming Bar Empress, has tried before, but she was also unable to do so. Hearing the Fire Lotus King's words, Ji Dong couldn't help but feel excited and said, That means as long as we can leave the magma layer, then the core world's creatures in the outer 5 layers can go to the surface world? The Fire Lotus King was stunned for a moment and said, In theory, that's the case. However, Even if the core world's creatures in the first 5 layers go to the surface world, it's useless. Their strength is too weak. Other than the kings of the various races, their cultivations aren't high. Furthermore, the core world's creatures in the first 5 layers mainly serve the experts in the deeper layers. They can't leave the magma layer, so they have never gone outside. Jidong pondered for a moment, and finally said what he was thinking in his heart. If I want to bring the second layer's fire raven race to the human world for a period of time, not too long, is that possible? The Fire Lotus King, Fire Spirit King, and Fire Devil King looked at each other. They clearly didn't understand what Jidong meant by this. The Fire Spirit King said doubtfully, "Leader, of course it's possible. However, although the Fire Raven race has a large number, they are relatively weak. Not to mention anything else. As long as the dragon race from the surface world takes action, I'm afraid they'll be exterminated in a very short period of time. The Fire Raven race still has a certain use in our core world. They bear the task of transporting the fire essence fruit. If the entire race is exterminated, it'll have a huge impact on the core world. However, if Leader really wants to use them, it's not impossible to transfer them out." Jidong smiled indifferently and said, "What I want to tell all of you is that no race can be underestimated. Even the fire crows that live in the outermost layer of the core world. The fire crows are indeed very weak, but they possess a quality that most races don't have, and that is unity. They have an unyielding backbone and a spirit that is unafraid of death. They are absolutely united, and they wouldn't hesitate even if they had to pay with their lives. Do you still remember the Fire Owl Lord who came to deliver the news? It's right. The Fire Owl race was exterminated when they were looking for the Fire Raven race for revenge. I did take action at that time, but I mainly killed the Fire Owl King. The Fire Owl King brought over 1,000 elites of the Fire Owl race. How'd they die? It wasn't just because we Heavenly Stem's holy disciples took action. At the same time, most of them died at the hands of the Fire Raven race. I taught the Fire Raven race a group battle technique. In order to protect the Overlord and Commander rank Fire Raven race, the ordinary Fire Raven race used their own bodies and lives to stop the advance of the Fire Raven race. That battle was a great victory for the Fire Raven race. I believe that most of the Fire Raven race have learned the group battle technique I taught them. I dare say that although they are individually weak, they number in the millions and are united. Apart from the 3 great races, any other race that wants to deal with them will have to pay an unimaginably great price. Don't forget that I have another identity, the Fire Raven King. If someone else had said this, the 4 Supreme Elders would definitely not believe it. However, it felt different when it came from Jidong. The reason was very simple. Jidong had already created too many miracles with his demonic energy, which was completely out of the ordinary in the 15th layer of the Earth's core. For a moment, the 4 Supreme Elders couldn't help but look at each other, speechless. They couldn't imagine that the Fire Raven clan would be revered to such an extent by Jidong. Chapter 562. Jidong took a deep breath and said, "I won't mobilize the Fire Raven clan for the time being. In about 2 years, the 5 elements mainland will encounter a great calamity. At that time, I'm afraid I'll have to ask the Fire Raven clan for assistance. I hope the elders won't object." The Fire Lotus King, Fire Spirit King, and Fire Demon King nodded their heads at almost the same time. They had never thought much of the living beings in the outer 5 levels. Why would they offend the new sect leader who would definitely become a god in front of them? Furthermore, even though Jidong had described the Fire Crow clan so perfectly, in reality, with their knowledge, they did not care about this. They did not think that the Fire Crow clan would be able to do anything. Even if the Fire Crow clan were to disappear from the core world, there wouldn't be much of a problem. To Jidong, solving this problem was extremely significant. It was even more significant than succeeding the position of the Pope of the Flaming Bar. There were still 2 years for the Fire Raven clan to train. As long as they could master the formation, he only needed to bring 1,000,000 Fire Raven clan to the outside world to become the Overlord of the Sky. The powerhouses of the 5 elements mainland wouldn't be able to take a single step forward. Jidong said, "There's nothing else. I just hope that everyone can work together for the peace of the core world. The Flaming Bar's original intention was not to command the entire core world. Every race is the master of the core world. It's best for everyone to unite and manage the core world. Please wait for me for a while. I'll head to the 18th layer once my mana recovers. Red, endless flames, unparalleled heat and pressure. Steel instantly melted into water. No matter how tough the metal was, it couldn't exist here. This was the 18th layer of the core world. Ji-Dong stood silently on the huge, geocentric crystal rock platform. He had been here for a full 7 days. From the 15th layer to the 18th layer, luck was in the air and not on the ground. From the 15th layer onwards, it was a world with reversed gravity. One could only enter by flying upwards. Under the guidance of the 3 patriarchs, Ji-Dong arrived here 7 days ago. Just like what the Fire Lotus King had said, the 18th layer of the core world belonged to powerhouses at the peak of the Saint tier. This was the true core of the planet. The unparalleled heat almost engulfed Ji-Dong when he arrived. Fortunately, the 9 natal lotus seeds of the Flaming Bar had saved him. When Ji-Dong saw the familiar crystal platform, he stood there quietly. Only the Flaming Bar existed in his mind. For 7 days and 7 nights, he and the Flaming Bar kept replaying in his mind. The Fire Lotus King was right. If the Flaming Bar hadn't suppressed the power of the 18th layer of the core world, he wouldn't have been able to survive here. When he first came here, he almost died, even though the Flaming Bar tried its best to suppress the terrifying heat. At that time, the Flaming Bar had only just met him. The Flaming Bar, it's been more than 2 years. Do you know how I've survived these 2 years after you left? I'd rather have been the one who died and you survived with my body. That way, at least we could still be together. The Flaming Bar, I miss you so much. I really miss you so much. Nobody would disturb him here. He was the only one standing quietly on the crystal platform. When he arrived at the 18th layer of the core world, once again, this was the place that he had longed to come to the most. However, Ji-Dong's mood was completely different from before. Looking at the illusory red color around him, he seemed to see the Flaming Bar smiling at him. The environment here was so bad, but to Ji-Dong, it made him feel that this was the closest place to the Flaming Bar. The Flaming Bar, wait until I've gathered all 10 bottles of wine and settled the holy war between the 2 continents. I'll come and find you then. I'll definitely help you fulfill your wish, even though I know that you're afraid that I'll follow you. Even so, I'll still fulfill it. However, do you really think that time can dilute my feelings for you? When you left this world, you took my heart with you. No matter where you are, I'll follow you. If you don't say anything, I'll take it as you've agreed. At this point, an expression that was hard to tell whether he was crying or laughing appeared on his face. He slowly sat down on the crystal platform and said, "If I help the Radiant 5 Elements mainland win the Holy War, I'll repay all the favors I've owed since I came to this world. From now on, everything I have belongs to you." At this point, for some reason, a figure suddenly appeared in his mind, causing his words to stop abruptly. That figure was the Tukey Saintess, Chun Si-Xuan, who had an equally perfect appearance. Ji-Dong shuddered. Yes, he could repay the favors of others, but what about Chun Si-Xuan? Could everything she had done for him be repaid just by winning the Holy War? The Flaming Bar, I was wrong. I'm afraid I've really let Si-Xuan enter my heart. She's as perfect as you, even though she's different from you, but I don't know why. Whenever she's by my side, I feel an inexplicable sense of closeness, so I can't make up my mind to chase her away. Perhaps I'm really moved by her, but I can only treat her as a friend and will never take a step further. Even though I know that if your spirit is in heaven, you'll definitely wish for me to be happy, but no one can replace your position in my heart. Without you, I'd rather suffer for the rest of my life. All right, that's all for today. I'm going to start cultivating and strive to become stronger so that I can solve the problem of the Holy War. It would be great if you were still by my side. We could cultivate together, and when we're strong enough to challenge the divine realm, we'll overturn it. Who asked that despicable place to tear us apart? A hint of killing intent floated out from between Ji-Dong's brows. He sat cross-legged and started his routine cultivation. Actually, He would rather stay here and chat with the flaming bar. However, even with the protection of the 9 red lotus seeds, if he didn't cultivate regularly, he wouldn't be able to survive here. In order to stay here for a longer period of time, he had to persevere. A few months later, at the foot of Almonds Mountain, a deep golden light shot into the sky, as though it was going to tear the entire sky apart. The dazzling brilliance surged in the sky, and at this moment, that smear of gold replaced all the other beautiful colors in the sky. On the ground, at the starting point of the golden light, a golden-haired lady sat upright. Wasn't that the golden light emitted from her body? At this moment, on the black ink crown above her head, 5 starlights slowly overlapped and imprinted themselves on the crown peak, forming the last imprint of the 9 crowns. Outside the golden light, Fury and the others clenched their fists as they watched nervously. Their eyes were filled with unconcealable excitement. It's done. It's really done this time. There's finally a powerhouse with the 9 crowns among the heavenly stem holy disciples. The supreme powerhouse, Exingene, will follow his holiness. That's right, it was Ajin in the golden light. After the heavenly stem holy disciples left the core world, it took them a full 10 days to adapt to the outside world. After leaving the fiery core world, it was the first time they felt that the air on the surface was so wonderful. The various active magical elements in the air were so intimate, and they didn't need any urging at all. They started cultivating with the 5-element cycle formation that Jidong had created. Although Jidong wasn't around, the 2 elemental bodies he had summoned completely replaced him, accompanying everyone in their cultivation. The training in the core world didn't just increase everyone's combat experience. At the same time, the harsh environment also made their body's ability to resist pressure stronger. Everyone felt as though they had been reborn, especially Ajin, who had fought with saint powerhouses. This feeling was especially strong. Coupled with her own special senses, she finally successfully broke through to the 9 crowns realm after a few months, becoming the first supreme powerhouse among the heavenly stem holy disciples of this generation. 9 crowns and 8 crowns were 2 completely different concepts. In the entire 5 elements continent, there were at least hundreds of 8 crowns demon masters, but only 10 9 crowns demon masters were known to the public. Most 8 crowns demon masters would never be able to touch the threshold of 9 crowns in their entire lives. Not only did it require their own hard work, but it also required opportunity and talent. Without a doubt, the heavenly stem holy disciples all had the talent to become 9 crown sovereigns. But for someone like Ajin to break through to 9 crown at such a young age, it was extremely rare in the history of the heavenly stem holy disciples. Of course, her breakthrough was only the beginning. No one knew her true age. Even Ajin herself did not know. And other than her, the others were also charging towards the 9 crown. Even Du Xner and Du Ming were about to reach the 8 crown, and Lon Bauer had even successfully entered the 8 crown level. They were getting closer and closer to Jidong's goal. The shocking golden light converged in the air, turning into a long rainbow, slowly landing on the Yin crown on Ajin's head and disappearing. At this moment, Ajin's entire body seemed to be emitting a faint layer of treasure light, and she had a special temperament. If she was like the other demon masters in the past, then she was now a part of the metal element. She didn't need to do anything at all, and the metal element in the air would naturally gather around her, waiting for orders. This was the difference between 8 crowns and 9 crowns. Ugh! Ajin let out a long breath and slowly opened her beautiful eyes. 2 cold bolts of lightning flashed through them, causing people's hearts to tremble. A rare smile appeared on her cold, delicate face. The Earth Dragon ancestor had once told her that after inheriting the ancestor dragon's bloodline, she would definitely be able to cultivate to the saint level. All she needed was time. Breaking through to the 9 crowns realm could be said to be the most crucial step. Although the cultivation of the 9 crowns realm would be slower than the 8 crowns realm, it would be a smooth journey. There would be no bottlenecks before rank 99. Ajin, congratulations, Fury said with a smile. The other heavenly stem holy disciples also went up to congratulate Ajin. Ajin smiled and said, "Thank you, everyone. It won't be long before you can also break through to 9 crowns." Fury chuckled and said, "I hope so." After being suppressed in the core world for so long, his mana immediately improved after returning to the surface world. He had already reached rank 88 and was getting closer and closer to rank 90. After Qin Sixuan congratulated Ajin, she turned to look in the direction of the Almonds Mountain Peak and murmured, "Looking at the time, Jidong should have come out by now. Why isn't he here yet?" Ajin said, "Perhaps he directly went to the Holy Evil Island." Chun Sixuan's delicate body trembled slightly, and a hint of sadness appeared in her eyes. She understood that Ajin was very likely right. Jidong was already the leader of the Flaming Bar Holy Church. He could have left through an exit close to the Holy Evil Island and directly gone to the Holy Evil Island. He went to the 18th floor of the core world, so there was no doubt that his yearning for the Flaming Bar would have deepened. But how could she stop him at that time? Smiling bitterly, Qin Sixuan slowly lowered her head. The contradiction in her heart was no longer a contradiction. Even she herself did not know how she should face Jidong. Originally, she thought that she had seen an opportunity because Jidong did not reject her as much. But as time passed, she found that although Jidong no longer rejected her, his love and yearning for the Flaming Bar seemed to have deepened, so she had no chance to truly enter his heart. Jidong, oh Jidong, how fortunate it is for the Flaming Bar to receive such love from you. But how sad are we now? We are so close, but we can't recognize each other. This is really so close, yet so far away. Ajin was right. Jidong did go directly to the Holy Evil Island. After confessing and confessing to the Flaming Bar every day in the Earth's core, how could he deliberately return to the others and offer sacrifices to the Flaming Bar with Qin Sixuan? He would never forget the memorial day of the Flaming Bar. At this time, he had already arrived at the Holy Evil Island. On the 3rd memorial day of the Flaming Bar, after offering sacrifices to the Flaming Bar, he bathed in the heavenly red lotus fire and cried bitterly. Finally, he went to the 18th layer of the Earth's core world and made peace there continue. Now, Jidong's last wish was to end the holy war and find the other 3 bottles of top-quality wine for the Flaming Bar. After bathing in the heavenly red lotus fire for 3 whole days, Jidong walked out and got drunk. He fell on the Holy Evil Island and slept for 3 whole days before he woke up. When he woke up, he did not look at the heavenly red lotus fire again, but activated his own transmitting formation. Flaming Bar, I have to go. This is your 3rd memorial day. I can't waste time, because the sooner I fulfill your wish and my own responsibility, the sooner I can find you. My Flaming Bar, wait for me. Luo, Chiu tidied up,